Chapter 38:11, Killing Intent reappeared. Li Zhuangji was so angry that he gritted his teeth. Yun Chujiu, you're spouting nonsense. You were clearly the one who beat me to such a state, and you even forced me to write you a loan of 2 million yuan. You're simply the villain who complained first. Yun Chujiu looked at Li Zhuangji in disbelief. You, how can you be so shameless? You were clearly the one who fell to such a state. What has it got to do with me? On the other hand, you threatened me not to go to the sword pool to cultivate in the future, and even said that the sword pool belonged to your Li family. It was up to your Li family to decide who went and who didn't go. You also said that if you want to go to the sword pool, it's not impossible. You asked me to lend you 2 million high-grade spirit stones. I'm such a timid person, so I had no choice but to give you 2 million high-grade spirit stones. Later, you seem to have committed a crime. You beat yourself up and even cut your own face. I took the opportunity to let you write and debit notes so that you wouldn't go back on your word. Manager Song, this is the whole process. If you don't believe me, you can ask the disciples who went to the sword pool to cultivate today. They all saw it with their own eyes. The corner of Manager Song's eyes twitched violently. If it wasn't for the fact that a disciple of the discipline hall happened to be cultivating by the sword pool and told him the whole process, he might have really believed this nonsense of Yun Chujiu. Li Zhuangji was so angry that his fingers were trembling. He wanted to argue, but his anger attacked his heart, and he actually fainted from anger. Yun Chujiu spread out her hands. Manager Song, did you see that? He fainted because he had a guilty conscience. Manager Song. At this time, Manager Li sneered. Yun Chujiu, you really have a sharp tongue. Do you think that everyone will be afraid of you and won't come out to testify? Heaven's net is wide open, but it doesn't leak out. You will definitely be punished by the sect rules today. Come and read on our website Wuxia World site. Thanks. Yun Chujiu narrowed her eyes. This Manager Li was much better than his good-for-nothing son. There was a witness. Then there was. After Manager Li and Manager Song greeted each other, a few disciples squeezed in from the crowd and described what happened. Of course, they skipped over the part where Li Zhuangji provoked Yun Chujiu. They pushed all the blame onto Yun Chujiu. One of the disciples even said, Manager Song, this Yun Chujiu used a kitchen knife to cut junior brother Li. You can compare it. Manager Song really knew that Yun Chujiu had a big kitchen knife. She used this kitchen knife to compete with Master Ouyang. Therefore, Manager Song said, Yun Chujiu, hand over that kitchen knife. I'll let someone check it. Yun Chujiu did not object. She took out the large kitchen knife from her storage ring. However, as soon as she held the large kitchen knife in her hand, a monstrous killing intent appeared in her mind again. She wished that she could kill everyone present. Yun Chujiu managed to control the killing intent in her body with great difficulty. She was afraid that there was something wrong with the large kitchen knife, so she had no choice but to put it away. Yun Chujiu's face was pale, and her forehead was covered with fine beads of sweat. In the eyes of everyone, she looked guilty. Li Zhuangji, who had woken up, gritted his teeth and said, What? You don't dare to hand it over, do you? You have a guilty conscience. Yun Chujiu, you beat up a fellow disciple for no reason, and you refuse to repent. Just wait to be punished in bitter cold cave. Li Zhuangzi's noisy voice made the killing intent in Yun Chujiu's heart grow stronger. There were even faint purple lightning flashes in her lowered eyes. Fortunately, at this moment, the black bead in Yun Chujiu's dantian trembled. Yun Chujiu's dantian was in pain, and only then did she regain a trace of clarity. Chapter 38:12, The abnormal Yun Chujiu. The purple lightning in Yun Chujiu's eyes suddenly disappeared, but there was still a murderous intent in her heart. She could only rely on her will to suppress it. She knew that if she continued to delay, she might not be able to control herself and cause a big disaster. Therefore, she smiled bitterly and said, The sword pool has been controlled by the Li family for a long time. I, a small outer disciple, naturally can't contend with it. Forget it, I don't want to explain anymore. Manager Song, you can do as you like. Manager Song, what did he mean by, do as you please? These words sounded as if he and Manager Lee were in cahoots. He patted the desk and said with an unhappy expression, Yun Chujo, our discipline hall is concerned with evidence. Now that the witnesses and evidence are all here, they can prove that you beat Li Zhuangji. If you can't provide strong evidence, I can only enforce the law impartially. Yun Chujo said with a pale face, then we'll deal with it according to the sect rules. I have no other opinions. Once Yun Chujo said that, not only Manager Song, even the onlookers were very surprised. This was completely inconsistent with this troublemaker's style of doing things. This guy would be unreasonable and unreasonable. Why did he confess so easily today? Although Manager Song was a little surprised, he thought that since Yun Chujo had already confessed, no one would be able to say anything, so he said, okay, since you have confessed, then according to the sect rules, beating a fellow disciple will be punished according to the severity of the circumstances. Li Zhuangzi's injuries are not too serious, so you will be imprisoned in the bitter cold cave for a month. Come and read on our website Wuxia World site. Thanks. The reason why Manager Song said this was because although Li Zhuangzi's injuries looked quite miserable, Yun Chujo did not hurt his vital parts. He would be fine after 2 days of recuperation. Yun Chujo nodded. I admit my punishment. Although Manager Song did not understand what Yun Chujo was up to today, he was afraid that she would cause any more trouble, so he immediately ordered someone to escort her to the bitter cold cave. Li Zhuangji suddenly thought of the loan slip and quickly shouted, wait. My loan slip. Manager Song, ask Yun Chujo to return the loan slip to me. Without waiting for Manager Song to speak, Yun Chujo took out a piece of paper from her storage ring, waved it in front of everyone, and then tore it into pieces. The scraps of paper were blown away by the wind. Yun Chujo glanced at Li Zhuangji and Manager Li indifferently. Her eyes were filled with a strong murderous intent, which scared Li Zhuangji so much that he didn't dare to say a word. Even Manager Li felt a chill on his back. How could this wretched girl have such a strong desire to kill? When he looked again, Yun Chujo had already gone far away with the people from the discipline hall. Not long after Yun Chujo walked out, Zhuge Dong ran over with a worried look. He saw Yun Chujia's pale face and her forehead was covered with fine beads of sweat. He asked worriedly, Junior Sister Yun, are you not feeling well? Yun Chujo shook her head. I'm fine. I'm just angry. I didn't expect that evil man Li Zhuangji to complain first. He actually slandered me for beating him up. He was clearly the one who fell to the ground. Zhuge Dong, Junior Sister, what's going on? Don't you know what's going on? The corner of Zhuge Dong's eyes twitched. He continued, it's good that you're fine. The hall master asked me to bring you some food to keep you warm. Take care. Yun Chujo nodded and put away the things. Then, she left with the disciples of the discipline hall. Chapter 38-13 Bitter Cold Cave. After almost 2 hours, Yun Chujo finally arrived at Bitter Cold Cave. Bitter Cold Cave, as the name implied, was naturally a place with extremely harsh conditions and extremely cold. It was rather strange to say that this bitter cold cave was located not far from the main entrance of the earth fire. Even though it was constantly roasted by the earth fire, the inside of the bitter cold cave was still extremely cold. After the disciples guarding the bitter cold cave checked the document archives of the discipline hall, they locked Yun Chujo up in the second bitter cold cave. In fact, the bitter cold caves of different numbers were basically the same. It was just that they were built to isolate the people who were closed, so they built a stone wall in the middle to separate the bitter cold cave into several rooms. At this time, the surging killing intent in Yun Chujia's heart had weakened a lot. She felt that it was not bad to stay in the bitter cold cave for a month. At least, she wanted to see if this inexplicable killing intent was related to the haunted house. Yun Chujo sized up the second bitter cold cave. There was nothing inside, but the temperature was frighteningly low. Fortunately, Hei Xinjiu had the 10,000-year-old fire marrow in her hand, and she also had the cloak of the nine-tailed fox. She did not feel that it was too cold. Perhaps it was because it was too cold here. Yun Chujo felt that the killing intent in her body suddenly disappeared without a trace, as if everything before was an illusion. Yun Chujo remembered that every time there was an abnormality, it was because of the large kitchen knife. Hence, she took out the large kitchen knife, but this time, there was no abnormality at all. Yun Chujo was puzzled, so she let Dog 2 out. Dog 2, on the other hand, was resistant to the cold. It ran a few rounds in the bitter cold cave and said with its spiritual sense, "Little fairy, this bitter cold cave is simply tailor-made for you." Yun Chujo kicked it in annoyance. What did it mean by tailor-made for her? Was she born to be punished? After being kicked, not only was Dog 2 not angry, but it even came up to her and said, "Little fairy, have you forgotten? The Great Void soul-repairing formation needs to be carried out in a very cold place. Isn't this the right place? Come and read on our website Wuxia World site." Thanks. Yun Chujia's eyes lit up. That's right. Last time, because the heaven and earth energy around the bottomless ice abyss had been sucked dry, she had no choice but to stop the Great Void's soul-repairing formation. This nameless sword sect must have a lot of heaven and earth energy, which could be used to repair souls. However, the area of Bitter Cold Cave number 2 was a little small, so it was not enough to set up the Great Void's soul-repairing formation. She looked at the stone walls on the left and right sides. Then, this guy knocked on the left wall with a big kitchen knife. "Hey, is there anyone next door?" After knocking for a while, there was no movement on the left side. Yun Chujo picked up the big kitchen knife and knocked on the right wall again, but there was still no reaction. So, this guy started to hit the wall. This guy had already made a plan. At most, when he left, he would just build the wall again. He was not afraid of being exposed. This guy quickly knocked down the wall on the left and then started to knock down the stone wall on the right. After a while, the stone wall on the right was also knocked down. Then, this guy was dumbfounded. Because in the bitter cold cave on the right, there was a middle-aged man sitting cross-legged with a stubble beard. He was looking at Yun Chujo, who was holding a large kitchen knife, in shock. Yun Chujo smiled awkwardly and politely. Damn it, was this a dead person? She had knocked and smashed him so hard that he did not make a sound. Now, he had come out to scare people. Well, that martial uncle, I'm new here. Please take care of me, Yun Chujo said with a dry smile. The middle-aged man was dumbfounded. Was this person here to be punished or to demolish the bitter cold cave? Chapter 38:14, Uncle Master Zhang. Although the middle-aged man was silent, under Yun Chujia's shameless verbal attack, Yun Chujo finally understood why the middle-aged man did not respond when she knocked on the wall. It turned out that the stone used for the walls of the bitter cold cave was a soundproof stone. It was used to prevent the disciples imprisoned in the bitter cold cave from chatting. Of course, the person who designed it did not expect that a pervert like Yun Chujo would smash the walls, so they did not use the reinforcement formation on the wall. Uncle Master, my name is Yun Chujo, I am an outer disciple of the lower house. This time, I was locked up because I beat up the son of the sword pool steward. May I know your name? How did you get in? How long will you be locked up for? Yun Chujo naturally had her reasons for asking this question. This fellow could not wait for this person to leave as soon as possible so that she could set up the Great Void soul-repairing formation. My surname is Zhang. After the man said this, he did not say anything else. It was obvious that he did not want to say anything more. Yun Chujo rubbed her hands. She was the second bitter cold cave. If she wanted to set up the formation, she could only open up the third bitter cold cave where the man was. If he did not leave, she would not be able to set up the formation at all. Therefore, she asked again with perseverance, Martial Uncle Zhang, then why were you locked up here? How long did you have to be locked up for? Martial Uncle Zhang didn't even look at her. He closed his eyes and continued to cultivate, as if he didn't hear Yun Chujia's question. Yun Chujo was so angry. But there was nothing she could do. She couldn't force him to talk with a big kitchen knife. This fellow rolled his eyes. If he couldn't use force, then he would use force. This fellow set up a bonfire on the ground and began to roast the meat. Come and read on our website Wuxia World site. Thanks. Uncle Master Zhang opened his eyes and glanced at Yun Chujiu, who was roasting the meat. How could she still have the mood to roast the meat after being locked in the bitter cold cave? This little girl had a big heart. Soon, the aroma of the roasted meat spread. Yun Chujiu said with a smile, Uncle Master Zhang, come and eat the roasted meat. Martial Uncle Zhang acted as if he didn't hear her. He didn't even lift his eyelids. But Face had been craving for it for a long time. He used his spiritual sense to say to Yun Chujiu, little fairy, that's a fool. Ignore him. Let's eat quickly. Yun Chujiu glared at Butt Face and scolded him with her spiritual sense, eat, 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 eat. You only know how to eat. You're timid and greedy. Who would believe that you're an ancient fierce beast, Cheong Chi? You dumbass. But Face wagged his tail and said, little fairy, your scolding is so nice. If you scold me a few more times, I will feel uncomfortable if you don't scold me 8 times a day. Yun Chujiu, however, this fellow was also hungry. He decided to start eating roasted meat with Butt Face and ignored Uncle Master Zhang. When Butt Face was half full, he said slyly, little fairy, do you have wine? I heard that big chunks of meat eat meat. Drinking wine in big gulps is the true hero. Let me try. Yun Chujiu wished she could slap Butt Face on the wall, eat a big piece of meat, and drink a big mouthful of wine. Did he think he was a bandit? However, she was moved. She took out a wine gourd and said to Uncle Master Zhang with a smile, Uncle Master Zhang, I have some good wine here. Are you in the mood to come over and have a few drinks? Although Uncle Master Zhang still didn't say anything, Yun Chujiu noticed that his eyelids were trembling. Apparently, he was tempted. Yun Chujiu pursed her lips in her heart. It turned out that he was a drunkard. Therefore, He Xingjiu opened the lid of the wine gourd and deliberately shook it. Immediately, a strong wine fragrance drifted out. Uncle Master Zhang's eyelids trembled even more. Uncle Master Zhang, it's fate that we met in this bitter cold cave. Come and have a few cups to keep warm. Yun Chujiu said again with a smile. Chapter 38-15 The Past of Martial Uncle Zhang. Martial Uncle Zhang finally opened his eyes and sat beside the fire with a stiff face. Yun Chujiu was secretly delighted. She had thought that it would be difficult to take the bait, but she did not expect it to be settled with alcohol. Martial Uncle Zhang did not eat much meat and did not speak. He only drank 1 cup after another. Yun Chujiu was also obedient and did not ask anything. She poured the wine for Martial Uncle Zhang attentively. When Uncle Master Zhang's eyes were a little dazed, He Xingjiu began to pull back the net. Uncle Master Zhang, I see that you have a dignified appearance and a strange skeleton. How did you enter this bitter cold cave? Were you framed? Uncle Master Zhang drank the wine in his glass in 1 gulp and smiled bitterly. Framed? I came involuntarily. Yun Chujiu was stunned. Voluntarily came in. Was she sick? Before Yun Chujiu could continue asking, Uncle Master Zhang said, Little girl, I know that you want to get information from me. Forget it, it's okay to tell you. You must think that I came to this bitter cold cave voluntarily because I'm sick, right? Yun Chujiu laughed dryly. That's not the case. You must have a reason for doing so. You sure know how to talk. That's right. I have a reason that I must come here. 1 look and I can tell that you're a new disciple who just joined the sect. No wonder you don't know me. I am the direct disciple of the sect master. I was once a famous figure in the Nameless Sword sect. All the disciples of the same generation, who doesn't have to respectfully address me as senior brother when they see me? Zhang Li. When he said this, Zhang Li's face revealed a hint of disappointment. Yun Chujiu's heart moved. The direct disciple of Old Man Ouyang? If nothing unexpected had happened, this Zhang Li was originally groomed as the next sect master. Why did he voluntarily come to this bitter cold cave? Come and read on our website Wuxia World site. Thanks, she had never heard of such a person. Looking at how depressed he was, he must have experienced some kind of change. While Yun Chuzhou was deep in thought, Zhangli motioned for her to pour the wine. Yun Chuzhou quickly filled her glass again. Zhangli drank the wine in the glass in one gulp and then raised his head to laugh. Yun Chuzhou shrunk her neck. It was over. This uncle had started to act crazy from drinking. Zhangli laughed for a long while, but his eyes were a little red. He let out a long sigh. I was so proud before, but now I'm so down and out. Little girl, you must remember one thing. Don't be too proud at any time. Otherwise, you will suffer one day. Yun Chuzhou blinked her eyes and didn't say anything. Because what could this guy say? She had always been very arrogant. Zhangli didn't care whether Yun Chuzhou said anything or not. He finally said something that he didn't want to talk about. 5 years ago, Zhangli could be said to be very famous in the Nameless Sword sect. Whether it was his swordsmanship or his spiritual power cultivation, he was one of the best among his peers. However, he was also quite conceited. When he went out to the sect for a trial, because of his willfulness, he killed 5 of his fellow disciples. Only he and Wan Qingba escaped. Those 5 disciples were the personal disciples of the elders in the sect. Although Master Ouyang tried his best to protect Zhangli, Zhangli was still demoted to an outer disciple. Master Ouyang's original intention was to find a reason to turn Zhangli back into an inner disciple after a period of time, and then turn him back into a true disciple. Who would have thought that Zhangli had always been proud and arrogant? He blamed himself and had to bear the ridicule and complaints of the crowd. Soon, he began to drown his sorrows with alcohol. What was worse was that when he was practicing his sword after drinking, he actually went mad and almost killed Wan Qingba, who was trying to comfort him. This time, even Master Ouyang lost his patience with him and began to ignore him, leaving him to fend for himself. Chapter 38:16 Was she really possessed? The discipline hall was afraid that he would act up again and hurt others, so they locked him up in the bitter cold cave. Later, although his condition had improved, he did not want to go out and face the cold stares of others anymore. Therefore, every time he went out to buy some necessities after the deadline, he would continue to return to the bitter cold cave. I deserve all these punishments. I deserve it. If it weren't for me, they wouldn't have lost their lives. I've let them down. I once thought of using my life to pay for it, but I still haven't caught those murderers. I can't accept this. But, ever since the incident, how could the sect let me leave the sect? Not to mention carrying out the mission. Only by suffering in this bitter and cold cave can I feel better. Alright, now that you know, do you think that I deserve to die for my sins? Hee, I also think that I deserve death. After Zhangli finished speaking, he snatched the wine gourd from Yun Chuzhou's hand and continued drinking. Yun Chuzhou narrowed her eyes. Wasn't Wan Qingba elder Wan's son and Wan Pengcheng's uncle? There couldn't be another reason behind this, right? How could it be so coincidental that only Zhangli and Wan Qingba escaped? Furthermore, why would Zhangli go crazy from drinking? Why did he coincidentally want to kill Wan Qingba? Yun Chuzhou did not stop Zhangli from crying while drinking. Sometimes, suppressing one's emotions might not be a good thing. It would be better to vent it out. The next day, after Zhangli sobered up, he felt a little uncomfortable. However, Yun Chuzhou said with a smile, "Martial Uncle Zhang, we can be considered friends who have drunk before. Please don't be so distant from me in the future." Zhangli, this little girl most likely did not study hard. Was this how friends were used? Come and read on our website Wuxia World site. Thanks, Martial Uncle Zhang, I've always heard people say that someone has gone mad or something like that. Can you tell me what it is like to go mad? I'm really curious. Yun Chuzhou had already seen Zhang Li's most embarrassing side, so she did not feel any psychological burden. He smiled bitterly. Why are you so curious about this? Qi deviation can be divided into two types. One is when the qi and blood flow is reversed, the meridians are damaged, the light ones have their spiritual power damaged, and the heavy ones vomit blood and die. The other type is when the body does not have any substantial damage, but when the spiritual sense is in disorder and negative emotions such as resentment and murderous aura take the upper hand, the person will become abnormal, and even the person closest to him will be killed. I am the second type. Yun Chujia's face stiffened. Wasn't she very similar to the second type? However, she did not seem to be that serious. She could still rely on her will to control it. Could it be that she had really gone mad? Zhang Li saw that Yun Chujia's expression was not very good and thought that she was scared. He smiled bitterly and said, I said, why are you asking these questions? You must be scared now. You and I have known each other for a while. As an elder, I will give you a few words of advice. As an outer sect disciple, why do you have to have a conflict with Manager Li's son? Isn't it asking for trouble? When the time is up, go out and cultivate properly. Don't stir up trouble anymore. Yun Chuzhou had something on her mind, so she vaguely agreed. Zhang Li saw that his mind was elsewhere, so he did not say much and continued to meditate and cultivate. Yun Chuzhou frowned. She remembered that Zhang Li had said before that after he had gone mad, he had improved after staying in the bitter cold cave for a period of time. After she entered the bitter cold cave, she also felt that the last trace of bloodlust had dissipated. Could it be that she had really gone mad? Was it really because of the haunted house? Chapter 38:17 The enemy of an enemy is a friend. Yun Chuzhou rubbed her chin and wondered why the haunted house could cause one to go berserk. Logically speaking, the root of the berserk state was to magnify the negative emotions in one's heart, just like how the Guai Chao made her become a living dead. Then, how did the haunted house do it? Moreover, ever since she was tortured by the Guai Chao, she could be considered immune to all poisons. How could she still fall for it? Yun Chuzhou had a lot on her mind, so she was not in the mood to think about the Great Void's soul-mending formation. Besides, Zhang Li was here, so she could not set up the formation. What she wanted to do the most now was to return to the haunted house and find out the root of the problem. Then, she would completely solve the issue of killing intent. Otherwise, it would be a hidden danger sooner or later. However, how could she get out as soon as possible? Yun Chuzhou blinked her eyes and finally, her gaze fell on Zhang Li. As the successor of the next sect master, Zhang Li was naturally envied by others. Moreover, the 5 who died were the direct disciples of the elders. This move could be said to kill many birds with one stone. It was definitely a conspiracy. Perhaps Elder Wan's hand was involved in this. The enemy of the enemy was a friend. Although Zhang Li was now depressed and unable to achieve anything, he was once the direct disciple of Old Man Ouyang. If he used it well, he could also be a help. Thus, this fellow squeezed out a few crocodile tears and sighed. Martial Uncle Zhang, I understand your feelings very well. To be honest, I've had similar experiences with you. Zhang Li was stunned. What did you say? You've had the same experience as me? That's right. I'm not from the Towering Sky continent, but from the Immortal Essence continent. Back then, I was also very proud of myself in the sect. It was just that I was envied by others and then set up a vicious scheme for me. Come and read on our website Wuxia World site. Thanks. Basically, it was similar to what you went through. When I went out on a mission, a disciple who was usually good to me kept encouraging me, intentionally or unintentionally making me make the wrong decision. Coincidentally, we were ambushed. In the end, only me and the disciple who encouraged me returned to the sect. At that time, I was just like you, Martial Uncle. I simply felt that living was suffering, and I wished I could die. Fortunately, my master helped me to find out the truth in the end. It turned out that all of this was done by the disciple who instigated me. Damn it, not only did I kill him later, I even killed his dog. Yun Chuzhou gnashed her teeth and said. At first, Zhang Li only listened with some curiosity. However, as he listened, he stood up. Even though his face was covered by a full beard, it could be seen that his expression was very ugly. Yun Chujo pursed her lips in her heart. Wasn't he that stupid? After a long while, Zhang Li stared at Yun Chujo and said hoarsely, "What did you mean just now? You want to tell me that all of this was designed by Wan Qingbo?" Yun Chujo had an innocent look on her face. "Martial Uncle Zhang, I'm only talking about my own experience. As for whether that Wan Qingbo harmed you, you have to ask yourself." Zhang Li did not say anything for a long time. Yun Chujo stole a glance at his eyes and saw that there was suspicion, anger, and a hint of expectation in his eyes. Yun Chujo completely understood Zhang Li's thoughts. He wished that all of this was a conspiracy by Wan Qingbo. This way, the guilt that tormented him at all times would turn into hatred, and he would be able to get rid of the situation where he was living a life worse than death. After almost 2 hours, Zhang Li said to Yun Chujo, "Little girl, whether or not you have the intention to remind me, I will remember this favor. After I have investigated thoroughly, I will naturally show you something." Chapter 38:18. The eyes of the devil. Yun Chujo bared her little white teeth. "Martial Uncle Zhang, let's not wait for the next day to repay me. You should repay me now." "Zhang Li," after a moment of silence, Zhang Li said, "How do you want me to repay you?" Yun Chujo said with a smile, "Martial Uncle Zhang, aren't you free to go out at any time? You carried my rabbit to Li Zuangzi's courtyard for 2 nights in a row." As Yun Chujo spoke, she summoned the Meng Yanshou. In order not to be afraid of being exposed, this fellow had finally replaced the shell of the Meng Yanshou with the flowing light wind-blade rabbit that was commonly seen in the sky-high continent. However, this flowing light wind-blade rabbit was also the lowest-level spirit beast in the sky-high continent, especially in the northern continent. Basically, it was used to stew meat. Therefore, when Zhang Li heard Yun Chujo's words and saw the Meng Yanshou on the ground, he was completely dumbfounded. What kind of request was this? Although Li Zhuangzi was an inner sect disciple, based on Zhang Li's cultivation level, it was not difficult for him to walk around his courtyard at night. However, what was the little girl's motive for doing this? Zhang Li saw that Yun Chuji's expression was very serious. He thought to himself, no matter what her motive was, helping her once would be considered returning a favor. It was also possible. Therefore, Zhang Li agreed. That afternoon, Zhang Li left Bitter Cold Cave, while He Xinjiu began to bitterly build the wall. This fellow was building the wall while muttering, "There's a famous saying that says that it's easier to break the wall than to build it." It's true. But Face rolled his eyes and asked in puzzlement, "Little fairy, which famous person said this?" "Me." "Come and read on our website Wuxia World site." "Thanks but Face, alright, you win." That night, Zhang Li carried the nightmare beast and walked around Li Zuangzi's courtyard. He took out the so-called special die that Yun Chujo gave him and wrote a big, "kill" word on the ground. Of course, when he wrote it, he deliberately wrote it with his left hand to avoid being recognized by others. After everything was done, Zhang Li quietly left Li Zuangzi's courtyard. Not long after he walked out, he heard a terrified scream coming from inside the house. He frowned and quickly left. Inside the house, Li Zhuangzi was so scared that he broke out in cold sweat. He had an extremely terrifying nightmare. He actually dreamed of a devil covered in blood warning him to quickly release Yun Chujo. Moreover, he was not allowed to tell anyone about this matter, or else a great disaster would befall him. Li Zhuangzi wiped the cold sweat off his head. He comforted himself that he must have been daydreaming. It was just a dream, nothing much. However, the next morning, when he saw the situation in the courtyard, he was so frightened that he immediately sat on the ground. He saw a large, "kill" word on the ground. This was not much. The main thing was that the "kill" word was filled with the corpses of spirit ants. Under the contrast of the red "kill" word, it was particularly terrifying. Li Zhuangzi finally stood up. Could it be that someone had set him up? However, even if the word "kill" was man-made, how could he explain the nightmare? No one had the ability to make him have nightmares, right? Could the warning in the dream be true? If he did not release Yun Chuzhou, would there really be a big disaster? Li Zhuangji recalled hearing that when Yun Chuzhou was wronged last time, Sher Heiqi of the discipline hall had blood oozing out of his ears. Could it be that Yun Chuzhou was really that evil? The more Li Zhuangji thought about it, the more scared he became. Somehow, he remembered the murderous look in Yun Chuzhi's eyes before she left. It was actually the same look as the demon in his dream. Chapter 38-19 Ghost Hunting. Li Zhuangji took a while to recover before removing the spirit ant corpses and the red marks on the ground. He consoled himself that it must be a coincidence. However, in the middle of the night the next day, despite his efforts to widen his eyes, he fell asleep in the end and dreamed of the demon again. This time, the demon ate Manager Li right in front of him. Li Zhuangji was so scared that he cried out repeatedly. He stayed in the house shivering until dawn. When he opened the door and saw a large amount of blood in the yard, he fainted from fright. After Li Zhuangji woke up, he ran to the discipline hall without caring about anything else. Manager Song, I withdraw the charges against Yun Chuzhou. You let her out. Manager Song looked at the pale Li Zhuangji with a dumbfounded face. Is this guy sick? Previously, he wanted to severely punish Yun Chuzhou. Why did he come here to release Yun Chuzhou now? Li Zhuangji saw that Manager Song didn't say anything and repeated his request. He almost knelt down before Manager Song. Manager Song couldn't help but click his tongue in wonder. What on earth was going on? However, since the plaintiff withdrew the complaint, and it was only a grudge between the two of them, he naturally wouldn't stop it. He immediately ordered someone to release Yun Chuzhou from the bitter cold cave. After Yun Chuzhou came out of the bitter cold cave, she strolled towards her own courtyard. On the way, she met Zhang Li. Zhang Li returned the nightmare beast to Yun Chuzhou and left without saying anything. It was obvious that he did not intend to have a deep relationship with Yun Chuzhou. However, Yun Chuzhou did not seem to care about Meng Yanshou. Yun Chuzhou shrugged her shoulders indifferently. She had the bait in her hand, so she was not afraid that this Zhang Li would not take the bait in the future. It was better to let him hit the wall first. Come and read on our website Wuxia World site. Thanks. When Yun Chuzhou returned to the haunted house, Meng Yanshou kept asking for credit. Yun Chuzhou threw him a few scripts and he stopped immediately. Yun Chuzhou in the murder house inside and outside a check, but did not find any unusual places. Yun Chuzhou finally made up her mind not to sleep at night. She wanted to see what the hell was playing at. Therefore, at night, Yun Chuzhou sat on the stone bench in the yard with her eyes wide open. But face was trembling as he held Yun Chuzhi's leg with his claws and refused to let go. Little fairy, I'm so scared. I'm scared to death. Put the baby into the spirit beast bag. The cat cub is brave. Let it out. Yun Chuzhou glanced at Buttface. She felt that his acting was more exaggerated. She did not believe that Buttface was really afraid of ghosts. However, it was fine to let the kitten out. It was a good opportunity to try it out. Therefore, Yun Chuzhou let the kitten out. The kitten hated Buttface to death. This damn Cheong Chi. It was fine if she suffered, but she had to drag it down with her. It was really a bad thing. Buttface saw a flash of hatred in the kitten's eyes. It wagged its tail proudly. Although this kitten was hateful, its abilities were not bad. It was safer with it around. Since it was the beginning of the moon in the sky was only a thin crescent. The courtyard was very dark, adding to the terrifying atmosphere. Dog 2 said with a trembling voice, little fairy, don't you have the luminous pearl? Quick, take it out. The kitten said snappily, are you stupid? If it were as bright as day, would that thing appear? Both of them were arguing with their spiritual senses, so it was very quiet in the courtyard. Just then, there was a knock on the courtyard door. Chapter 38-20 Playing Tricks. Knock, knock, knock. The knocking on the door was exceptionally clear in the silent night. But Face was so scared that he was trembling. Ghost, ghost, the ghost is here. It scared me to death. The kitten looked at Buttface with disdain. Useless thing. What's there to be afraid of? What can it do to us? Although the kitten said so, it was still uncertain. After all, it had seen with its own eyes that Yun Chujo had really gone mad. It was impossible for it to say that this house was not strange at all. It secretly raised its head to look at Yun Chujo. It thought that Yun Chujo must be terrified too. It did not expect to see the corner of Yun Chujo's mouth slightly curled up. Not only was she not afraid at all, but she was eager to give it a try. Although the kitten was unwilling to admit it, it could not help but admire Yun Chujo's courage. This stupid girl was too bold. She was not afraid at all. Just as the kitten was thinking, it felt a gust of cold wind beside it. It realized that Yun Chujo had already jumped to the door and suddenly opened the door. Although Buttface was shivering and holding onto the kitten's tail, its eyes were wide open. It curiously looked at the door. However, at the next moment, Buttface suddenly rushed to the door and bit at the person who was imprisoned by Yun Chujo. Damn it! I told you to pretend to be a ghost to scare the baby. I'll bite you to death. Damn it, it's because you pretended to be a ghost that the baby's reputation will be ruined. I'll bite you to death. Come and read on our website Wuxia World site. Thanks. The kitten narrowed his eyes. Someone was pretending to be a ghost to scare people. However, what was going on with the little girl? Yun Chujo looked coldly at the ghost, who had been bitten by dog too and was crying like a ghost. She was wearing a white robe and a red cloth that looked like a tongue in her mouth. Her face was also pale because of some unknown dye. If an ordinary person saw this horrifying look at night, they would probably be scared to death. Unfortunately, this was all left over from her play. She was not creative. Junior sister Yun, spare me. Spare me. I was forced to do this. I had no choice. The ghost's face was washed by tears and sweat. In addition to his voice, Yun Chujo recognized his identity. It was the handyman Jiarani from the Sword Hall who encouraged her to go to the second floor to accept the mission. Yun Chujo raised her eyebrows. Forced by someone? Then tell me who forced you. And how? Jiarani said with snot and tears in his eyes. Junior sister Yun, yes, it was senior brother Luo and senior brother Yu who asked me to do it. If I didn't do it, he would kick me out of the Sword Hall. You also know that the servants in the Sword Hall are treated better than those in other places. I have no choice. Senior brother Luo and senior brother Yu. Luo Hai and Yu Bo. Yes, it's the two of them. Because they are on good terms with Elder Wan's grandson, Wan Pengcheng, they are the best among the outer disciples of the lower house, not to mention a little servant like me. I really have no choice. A trace of coldness flashed in Yun Chuji's eyes. It was not the first time that these two scumbags had troubled her. They were really courting death. Jiarani saw the coldness in Yun Chuji's eyes and shivered in fear. He had come once in the middle of the night. After knocking on the door a few times, he did not expect to provoke He Xinjia's anger when she woke up. He was dumbfounded by He Xinjia's scolding. He could only leave with his tail between his legs. This time, when Yun Chujo just came out of the bitter cold cave, Luo Hai and Yu Bo found him and asked him to continue playing the ghost. In fact, he was not willing to come either. Everyone said that this courtyard was evil. What if he went mad? Chapter 38-21 Ghosts fear the wicked. Even though Yun Chuji's haunted house was far away from the residences of the other outer sect disciples, Jiarani's wailing just now still attracted the attention of some outer sect disciples. However, those people had nothing to do with it, and they were afraid of the evil ways of the haunted house, so they naturally would not come over to check. Seeing that Yun Chujo did not speak for a long time, Jiarani could not figure out what Yun Chujo meant. Just as he was about to beg for mercy again, Yun Chujo kicked him into the courtyard. Junior sister Yun, you. What do you want to do? Jiarini asked in fear. It's very simple. From now on, you will stay in my courtyard every night. Anyway, I have a lot of empty rooms here. Don't you like to pretend to be a ghost? There are a lot of ghosts in my courtyard. You can cultivate a good relationship with them, Yun Chujio said faintly. Jiarini was instantly dumbfounded when he heard that. It was fine if he pretended to be a ghost outside the door, but this courtyard was a famous haunted house. If he lived here every night, wouldn't he be possessed by the devil? Just as he was about to refuse, Yun Chujio stuffed a pill into his mouth and said coldly, Jiarini, the pill I gave you is 1,000 cuts and 10,000 burps. If you don't take the antidote within a month, you will try what 1,000 cuts and 10,000 burps is. Don't worry, this is my exclusive secret medicine. No one can find out that you are poisoned. If you don't believe me, you can try it. Jiarini wanted to say more, but Yun Chujio stuffed his mouth with a rag and threw it into the yard. Then, she brought Butt-Face and the kitten into the house. Come and read on our website Wuxia World site. Thanks. Jiarini's body was confined, and his mouth was stuffed with a rag. He could only lie in the yard bitterly. This was nothing. The main thing was that when he remembered that this was a haunted house, he felt a chill run down his spine. Dog 2 eagerly went to Yun Chujio's bedside. Little fairy, weren't you scared just now? Or did you know that someone was playing tricks from the beginning? The kitten also curiously pricked up its ears to listen. It had to say that Yun Chujio's performance just now had exceeded its expectations. This darn girl was really bold. Yun Chujio glanced at Dog 2 and said faintly, whether it's a ghost or a person, they are all the same in the end. What's there to be afraid of? Besides, that night, I roared and the knocking stopped. It was obvious that I scared them away. How could it be a ghost? Butt-Face was stunned for a long time. After flattering him, he asked curiously, Little fairy, if you didn't guess that it was a person pretending to be a ghost, are you afraid? Yun Chujio raised her eyebrows slightly. What's there to be afraid of? No matter how scary a ghost is, there are still people who are scary. Stop talking nonsense and go to sleep. Butt-Face repeated a few words that Yun Chujio said, then, a bright light shone from his dog eyes. Little fairy, I finally understand. Isn't there a saying? Ghosts are afraid of evildoers. Evildoers like you are naturally not afraid of ghosts. Yun Chujio couldn't be bothered with this idiot. The so-called fear of ghosts was nothing more than the fear of unknown dangers. Just like when she was in the Yun family's ancestral tomb, she was not afraid of the so-called ghosts, but she was afraid that someone was playing tricks. The reason why she let Jiarini stay here every night from now on was to verify whether the people who lived here would suffer from qi deviation. Yun Chujio's restriction on Jiarini's spiritual power had a time limit. Therefore, the next morning, Jiarini scrambled out of the haunted house. He did not return to the sword hall. Instead, he ran to the nameless sword sect's medical center. Chapter 38-22 Sect Mission. Jiarini had spent a lot of sect contribution points to get several disciples in the medical center to treat him. However, everyone said that other than some external injuries, his body was normal and there was nothing wrong with it. Jiarini was about to cry. I'm really poisoned. How can there be nothing wrong? The disciples of the medical center looked at him as if he was a fool, and then no one paid him any attention. Jiarini had no choice but to leave the medical center with a sad face. He had just arrived at the sword hall when he was stopped by Luo Hai. I heard that you were beaten up by that stinky girl last night. You're a piece of trash. Can't you even pretend to be a ghost? Jiarini explained a few things in a submissive manner, but he subconsciously hid the poison and the fact that Yun Chujio asked him to stay there at night. Luo Hai kicked him and scolded him for being useless, then he turned around and left. Jiarini's heart was filled with resentment. This Luo Hai and that Yu Bo had always bullied him. The last time he instigated Yun Chujo to accept the mission on the second floor of the Bounty Hall, he originally wanted to look for Martial Uncle Wan to take credit, but he let this Luo Hai and Yu Bo replace him. Later on, Yun Chujo came back alive. He heard that Martial Uncle Wan had taught them a lesson. They deserved it. In the evening, Jiarini was very restless in his own residence. Should he go to the haunted house or not? At this moment, he felt a faint pain in his dantian. His face could not help but turn pale. It seemed that what Yun Chujo said was true. The poison she had given him was really an exclusive secret medicine. In the end, Jiarini still took his time to arrive at the haunted house. After all, compared to losing his life, chi deviation was better. Moreover, it might not be true chi deviation. When Buttface saw Jiarini coming over, his dog eyes couldn't help but light up. He had finally found a fun toy. Come and read on our website Wuxia World site. Thanks. Jiarini was really unlucky. He had been chased by Buttface in the yard for half a night. It was simply a life worse than death. For a few nights in a row, Jiarini stayed in Yun Chujia's yard. Other than being tortured by Buttface, there was nothing unusual. Yun Chujo deliberately let him compete with her in sword fights, but she did not find anything unusual. She also did not feel the sudden killing intent. What was going on? If an ordinary person had such worries, they would probably not be able to eat or sleep well. However, Hei Shinjo had always been ambitious. After pondering for a few days and seeing that there was no progress, she threw it to the back of her mind. On this day, Hei Shinjo was cultivating in her room. Her identity jade tablet started to tremble. After she used her spiritual sense to probe, she found that it was a message from the Bounty Hall, asking all the outer sect disciples to go to the Bounty Hall to receive sect missions. Yun Chujo could not help but twitch her lips. The Nameless Sword sect was really smart. Although the outer and inner sect disciples could receive the sect's resources on time, there was one thing that was really annoying, which was that they had to do the sect's mission every once in a while, and they could not refuse it. If they completed it, there would be a corresponding reward. If they failed, they would be punished, and in severe cases, they would be demoted to odd jobs. Therefore, all the sect disciples did their best when carrying out the sect's mission. This was also why many disciples were willing to become disciples of the Sword Forging Hall. This was because the mission of the Sword Forging Hall was more than half of that of an ordinary outer sect disciple, so it was naturally less risky. Yun Chujo grumbled in her heart as she slowly walked towards the Bounty Hall. There were so many outer sect disciples anyway, so they could not complete the mission in such a short time. It did not matter whether it was earlier or later. Chapter 38-23, People who went on missions together. When Yun Chujo strolled to the Bounty Hall, most of the outer disciples had already been assigned tasks. These tasks were assigned by the manager of the Bounty Hall in advance. They were only called over to collect the mission files so that they could understand the specific situation of the mission. Yun Chujo opened her own mission file and looked at it. The corners of her mouth could not help but curl up. It was interesting. It seemed that some people were really courting death. There were 2 old acquaintances in the list of disciples on the mission file. They were Luo Hai and Yu Bo. Yun Chujo didn't believe that this was a coincidence. Someone must have deliberately arranged it. Otherwise, how could a newbie like her be paired with Luo Hai and the others? This was obviously abnormal. It seemed that Luo Hai and Yu Bo planned to kill her when they were doing the mission. After all, once they were out of the sect, it would be much more convenient to make a move. A trace of viciousness flashed across Yun Chujia's eyes. Want to kill her? It was a good opportunity to kill these 2 eyesores so that they wouldn't cause trouble for her in the future. Yun Chujo looked at the names of the disciples in the other groups, but she didn't have any impression of them. She didn't know if they were Luo Hai's people. Yun Chujo glanced at the contents of the mission again and went to the Luo Yen mountain to investigate the reason for the sudden decline in the production of refined iron ore. The Nameless Swords sect had a large number of forging swords, so they had a huge demand for refined iron ore. As a result, the Nameless Sword sect had many mines under their name. The iron ore in the Fallen Goose Mountain could only be considered medium-sized among these mines. There had been no problems all along, but the quantity of refined iron ore sent over recently had suddenly decreased. Manor Master Sima, who was in charge of the Fallen Goose Mountain, explained that there had been a fault in the mine with a small amount of refined iron ore. They could only continue mining after the fault had been fully exploited, which was why the production had suddenly decreased. Come and read on our website Wuxia World site. Thanks. Refined iron ore was extremely important to the Nameless Sword sect. Even though they did not have any doubts about it, they still decided to send their disciples to check it out. Yun Chuzhou did not take this mission to heart. She felt that there was nothing to be done about it. The reason why Luo Hai and Yu Bo chose this mission was because they wanted to kill her. Naturally, they would not accept a sect mission that was too difficult. As the departure time was the next morning, after Yun Chuzhou left the Bounty Hall, she went straight to Sword Forging Hall number 9. When Hall Master Zhuge saw Yun Chuzhou coming over, although he still had a straight face, it was not difficult to see that he was still very happy to see Yun Chuzhou coming over. Yun Chuzhou babbled about the matter of going out to do a sect mission. Zhuge Dong said worriedly, "Junior sister Yun, Luo Hai, and Yu Bo are on good terms with Wan Pengcheng. I'm afraid it will be disadvantageous for you." Yun Chuzhou laughed lightly. "Don't worry. Those two idiots are not my match." Hall Master Zhuge glared at her unhappily. "Their spiritual powers are much higher than yours. Moreover, they are working together. Don't let your guard down." Yun Chuzhou blinked her eyes and only smiled without saying a word. Hall Master Zhuge knew that the little girl in front of him had an idea, so he did not say anything more. Instead, Zhuge Dong reminded her again, "Junior sister Yun, that Mu Jiang has a good character. You can get closer to him and be considered a helper. It is said that Zhao Hui is very tactful. He is probably a fence-sitter. You have to be on your guard. Perhaps he has already been bribed by Luo Hai and Yu Bo. As for the other three, I don't have much contact with them and I haven't heard any rumors, so you can observe them again." Chapter 38-24, Mu Jiang. Yun Chuzhou nodded obediently and agreed. After chatting for a while, she left the number 9 sword forging hall. As soon as Yun Chuzhou arrived at her courtyard, Jiarini rushed over. "Junior sister Yun, I heard that you're going on a sect mission with Luo Hai and the others. You have to be careful. I saw Uncle Master Wan talking to them for quite a while yesterday, and I vaguely heard your name a few times." Yun Chuzhou naturally knew the purpose of Jia Rinai's words. She was afraid that if she died outside, the poison in his body would not be able to be cured. Yun Chuzhou took out a pill from her storage ring and handed it to Jia Rini. "Eat this pill. The poison won't take effect for at least 3 months." Jia Rini originally wanted to put away the pill and let the people of the medical center take a look. However, under Yun Chuzhou's cold gaze, he had no choice but to sadly swallow the pill. "While I'm away, help me keep an eye out for news regarding the number 9 Forging Sword Hall and Zhongli. If you do well, I'll detoxify you when I come back." Although Jiarini was puzzled as to why Yun Chuzhou would pay attention to the news about Zhongli, he still readily agreed. The next day, Yun Chuzhou arrived outside the Nameless Sword Sect's mountain gate according to the agreed time. At this time, there were already many outer sect disciples gathered outside the gate. After the members of the group had gathered, they immediately flew their flying spirit tools and left. Yun Chuzhou was looking around when she heard a displeased voice. "Yun Chuzhou, why aren't you on time at all? We agreed to meet here at midnight, why are you only here now?" Yun Chuzhou followed the voice and saw that it was Luo Hai who spoke. Yun Chuzhou's heart skipped a beat. Yesterday, the manager of the Bounty Hall had informed her that the time was 25 minutes past midnight. It seemed like he did it on purpose. Come and read on our website Wuxia World site. Thanks. She walked up to Luo Hai and did not explain further. It was better to not talk about things that could be done. Luo Hai saw that Yun Chuzhou looked like a dead pig that was not afraid of boiling water. His expression became even more contemptuous. If it wasn't for the fact that your spiritual power is too low and I'm afraid that you won't be able to complete the sect's mission, the higher-ups wouldn't have assigned you to our group. I didn't expect you to not be punctual. You're really a burden. Yun Chujio glanced at him. Senior brother Luo, if you continue to give a long speech, you'll waste even more time. Luo Hai choked and snorted coldly. He did not introduce the members of the group to Yun Chujio. He directly summoned his flying spiritual weapon and waited for everyone to go up before leaving the Nameless Sword sect. As Yun Chujio's unpunctuality had delayed everyone's journey, the others in the group treated her very coldly. However, one of the loyal-looking disciples nodded slightly at Yun Chujio. Yun Chujio was slightly stunned. It was actually him. When Yun Chujio came to the Nameless Sword sect and prepared to risk her life to ascend to heaven, there was once a loyal-looking disciple who tried to dissuade her. It was this disciple in front of her. Yun Chujio had a good impression of this disciple. She smiled and said, "May I know how to address this senior brother?" "Junior sister Yun, I'm Mu Jiang." "We met once when you entered the sect," Mu Jiang said with a simple and honest smile. So he was Mu Jiang. Senior brother Dong was right. Mu Jiang was obviously a good person. "Senior brother Mu, can you help me introduce the other senior brothers?" Yun Chujio was best at following the flow. Seeing that Mu Jiang was easy to talk to, she said with a smile. Mu Jiang nodded and helped Yun Chujio introduce the remaining 4 people, Xiao Hui, Tao Zhong, Wu Dali, and Qian Chao. When Mu Jiang introduced them, other than Xiao Hui who smiled and nodded, the other 3 male disciples all looked like they did not care about Yun Chujio. Yun Chujio did not mind it. If she had to live off others' expressions, she would have died 1,000 times already. Along the way, Luo Hai and Yu Bo had repeatedly slandered Yun Chujio, intentionally or unintentionally. It was nothing more than words like not being punctual and having low spiritual power that would drag everyone down. This made Tao Zhong and the others even more dissatisfied with Yun Chujio. Tao Zhong glanced at Yun Chujio with disgust, then he said, "Yun Chujio, no matter how much you torment us in the sect, it has nothing to do with us. But this sect mission concerns our vital interests. If it's because of you that we didn't complete the sect mission, then don't blame us for not being polite." Yun Chujio looked at him indifferently. "Don't worry, I'm a very lazy person. I won't cause trouble." Tao Zhong snorted. "That's for the best. Otherwise, don't blame us for ignoring you when you're in danger." Seeing that the atmosphere was a little awkward, Xiao Hui quickly changed the topic. Yun Chujio couldn't be bothered to argue with a bunch of idiots, so this matter was over. After a few days of flying and walking through a valley where flying was prohibited, the group finally arrived at the Fallen Goose Villa. Manor Master Sima of the Fallen Goose Mountain Villa warmly let Yun Chujio and the others into the villa, and his attitude was very respectful. Actually, this was understandable. The Fallen Goose Mountain Villa was a small force that relied on the Nameless Sword sect, so they naturally would lower their stance. As the small leader of the group, Luo Hai put on a good show. After some small talk, they finally got to the main topic. "Manor Master Sima, tell me in detail about the refined iron mine." Manor Master Sima's originally smiling face was instantly filled with worry. "My lords, to tell you the truth, I've been really worried to death recently. Originally, the Luo Yen Mountain Iron Mine under our management had always been smooth sailing. But recently, we were unlucky enough to mine into a fault. Although there are refined iron ores in it, the distribution is very scattered, and it's very hard. Not to mention the time and effort it takes, the output has decreased drastically. I don't even have the face to meet all of you." Luo Hai said casually, "Manor Master Sima, you don't have to blame yourself too much. This is something that cannot be helped. If the situation is true, I believe that the sect will not blame you." Manor Master Sima said some polite words with gratitude and then said, "All of you have worked hard on the journey. Let's rest for the night first. Tomorrow, I will accompany all of you to the mine to check it out, okay?" Luo Hai nodded his head and agreed without the slightest hesitation. He felt that the mission this time was too simple. After the mission was completed, he would create some accidents on the way back and kill that Yunchujio. Everything would be fine. Manor Master Sima was very enthusiastic. Regardless of whether it was the food or the accommodation, they were all meticulously arranged. No one could find any fault with them. The mine was still tens of miles away from the Wild Goose Down Mountain village. Due to the ban on flying, everyone could only take the carriage of the Wild Goose Down Mountain village to head there. Yun Chuzhou sat in the carriage, nibbling on a fruit as she looked at the scenery on both sides of the road. Tao Zhong coldly snorted in disdain. Some people are really lucky. On their first mission, they can execute it together with senior brother Luo. They don't have to put in any effort. As long as they follow, they can earn contribution points. Wu Dali and Qian Chao also chimed in. Their words were full of ridicule for Yun Chujia's luck. Yun Chujio acted as if she had heard a dog barking and did not even look at the three of them. Tao Zhong talked for a long time but did not see Yun Chujio reply. He could not help but become angry from embarrassment. Yun Chujio, are you deaf or mute? Did you not hear what I said? Chapter 38-26. I want to go to the toilet. Just as Yun Chuzhou was about to teach him how to speak in human language, her eyes that were looking at the scenery outside suddenly shrank, and she looked outside carefully. Tao Zhong was about to flare up when Mu Jiang said with a simple and honest smile, "Junior brother Tao, junior sister Yun is still young. She can't help but be a little curious when she sees the scenery here. She didn't mean to ignore you." Zhao Hui also said with a smile, "Junior brother Tao, it's still more important for us to complete the sex mission. Let's not argue with junior sister Yun." Tao Zhong saw that Mu Jiang and Zhao Hui had come out to smooth things over and felt that he had earned enough face. He pursed his lips and said, "Yun Chuzhou, since you're not saying anything, then do you tacitly agree with what we said? You're a waste. You're just a burden." Tao Zhong saw that Yun Chuzhou still did not say anything, and he looked even more pleased. He thought that she was afraid of him. Don't look at how she was showing off in the sect. Once she left the sect, she would be afraid. Mu Jiang shook his head. He really did not understand why Tao Zhong and the others were targeting Yun Chuzhou. Although there were some rumors in the sect that junior sister Yun was always causing trouble, after interacting with her for the past few days, this junior sister Yun was very obedient. It seemed that the rumors couldn't be completely believed. Right at this moment, Yun Chuzhou shouted loudly, "Stop the car, stop the car, I want to go to the toilet. I can't hold it anymore." Mu Jiang, not to mention Mu Jiang, even Tao Zhong and the others who looked down on Yun Chuzhou were dumbfounded. Was it really all right for a girl to be so wild? After the coachman consulted Manor Master Sima, he parked the carriage by the side of the road. Yun Chuzhou clutched her stomach and got out of the carriage. Then, she went into the small forest by the side. Come and read on our website Wuxia World site. Thanks. Tao Zhong curled his lips in disdain and said to everyone, not only does this Yun Chuzhou have low spiritual power, but her words and actions are also vulgar. She is simply a disgrace to our nameless sword sect. Wu Dali and Qian Chao also chimed in with a few sarcastic remarks. After a long while, Yun Chuzhou did not return. Tao Zhong said even more disdainfully, "Look, I already said that this Yun Chuzhou is a hindrance. It has been so long since she went to the toilet. What's the use of such trash?" Mu Jiang frowned. It had indeed been a long time. He quickly got off the carriage and wanted to check it out. However, he was a man, so he could not go in to look for her. He could only stand at the edge of the small forest and shout a few times. Fortunately, Yun Chujia's response came from the forest very quickly. Mu Jiang was slightly relieved. As long as nothing happened, it was good. Not long after, Yun Chuzhou came out with a smile. She held a few branches with red wild fruits in her hands and handed one to Mu Jiang. "Senior brother Mu, these wild fruits are very sweet. Take it and eat." Mu Jiang was speechless. Why did the last toilet bring back these wild fruits? Luo Hai and Yubo sat in another carriage. The two of them looked at each other. This Yun Chujiu was really courting death. The more she acted like this, the worse Tao Zhong and the others' impression of her would be. When that time came, it would be easier for them to find an opportunity to attack. Moreover, after returning to the sect, Tao Zhong and the others would not say anything. As expected, after Yun Chujiu returned to the carriage, Tao Zhong and the others mocked her again. They almost pointed at Yun Chujiu's nose and scolded her. Zhao Hui watched from the side coldly. He was very puzzled. This Yun Chujiu even dared to beat up Elder Wan's grandson. Why would she swallow her anger this time? This was too unlike her style of doing things. Zhao Hui had a good relationship with the sect and was well informed. He naturally knew that during this mission, Luo Hai and Yubo would probably attack Yun Chujiu. However, he did not know whether to stand by and do nothing or help this little girl. He had to think about it again. Chapter 38-27 The smell of blood. Very soon, the carriage arrived at the Luo Yen mountain mine. Manor Master Sima accompanied Yun Chujiu and the others into the mine. As they walked, he explained the situation of the mine. After walking for a while, the group arrived at the place where they were mining. As expected, there were some faults. Seeing this, Luo Hai said to Manor Master Sima, "It seems that what you said is the truth. We will report it to the sect truthfully. You don't have to worry too much. After these faults are fully mined, the output will naturally increase." Manor Master Sima thanked him profusely again and accompanied everyone out. Tao Zhong suddenly frowned. "Manor Master Sima, why do I smell a bloody smell?" Manor Master Sima looked at Tao Zhong in confusion and sniffed. "No, what Lord Tao Zhong smells is the smell of refined iron ore, right?" Tao Zhong sniffed again. "That's not right. My sense of smell has always been more sensitive than ordinary people. This is not the smell of refined iron ore, it's clearly the smell of fresh blood." Tao Zhong sniffed a few more steps as he spoke. Then, he pointed at a spot in the mine and said, "The smell of blood seems to come from this place. The closer you get, the stronger the smell." Mu Jiang was honest. He quickly went over and said in surprise, "It's true. I really didn't pay much attention just now. When we get closer, there is indeed a smell of blood." Luo Hai and Yubo also walked closer and smelled it. Their faces couldn't help but change slightly. There really was a bloody smell. Without waiting for Manor Master Sima to explain, Yun Chujiu rushed to say, "Aya, what bloody smell? This is the smell of refined iron ore. I smelled this smell in Sword Forging Hall number 9. The quality of refined iron ore is not pure. This is the smell. Come and read on our website Wuxia World site. Thanks, let's go, let's go. It's more important to return to the sect to report our mission. If we have the time, we might as well return to the sect to practice our sword skills." Manor Master Sima also said from the side, "Yes, Lord Yun is right. This is the smell of refined iron ore with impure quality. How can this fine mine have the smell of blood?" Luo Hai nodded when he heard that. He believed what Manor Master Sima and Yun Chujiu said. That's right. This was a mine, how could there be the smell of blood? Unexpectedly, Tao Zhong glared fiercely at Yun Chujiu. "What do you trash know? This is clearly the smell of blood." Luo Hai frowned. "Junior brother Tao, it's true that you occasionally smell wrongly. Let's go. It's more important for us to hurry back to the sect." Unexpectedly, Tao Zhong snatched a miner's pickaxe and dug a few times. An even stronger smell of blood came from the mine. Tao Zhong was about to continue digging when Yun Chujiu suddenly came forward and grabbed his arm. She threw the pickaxe to the side and said, "Senior brother Tao, did you not sleep well yesterday? Why are you talking nonsense? Go, let's hurry back to the sect." Tao Zhong did not notice that Yun Chujiu had hit his mute acupoint. He was so angry that his face turned red, but he could not say a word. Zhao Hu's eyes suddenly shrank. He quickly came over to hold Tao Zhong's other arm and said, "That's right. This is clearly the smell of refined iron ore. Let's return to the sect to report our mission." Luo Hai and Yubo seemed to have thought of something. They laughed and said, "Manor Master Sima, this junior brother of mine has been having a fever recently. His brain is not very good. We will take our leave and return to the sect now." Although Mu Jiang did not know what had happened, he followed behind everyone and prepared to leave the mine. Manor Master Sima's expression was as usual as he said with a smile, "My lords, why don't we stay at the mountain villa for a night before leaving?" Chapter 38-28 and so on. No, we still have to rush back to the sect to report our mission. If there's a chance in the future, well, come and bother Manor Master Sima again. Although Luo Hai's tone was still rather calm, his forehead was covered with fine beads of sweat. Seeing this, Yun Chujiu cursed in her heart. Fuck, a bunch of trash. If it wasn't for the fact that she couldn't escape on her own, she wouldn't have cared about these idiots. The smile on Manor Master Sima's face was still the same as before. "Since that's the case, I won't keep you any longer. I'll send you off." When Manor Master Sima said, "I'll send you off," there was an indescribable strangeness in his tone that made people feel very uncomfortable. Luo Hai couldn't be bothered to think too much and nodded his head perfunctorily. At this moment, even the slowest Mu Jiang felt that something wasn't right. Only Tao Zhong was still struggling non-stop. Zhao Hui directly restrained his spiritual power and dragged him out. When everyone left the mine, Luo Hai and Yubo did not put on airs like when they came. They took the initiative to invite Mu Jiang and Zhao Hui to their carriage. Unexpectedly, Mu Jiang rejected with a silly smile. He had a hunch that something was going to happen, and Yun Chujiu's spiritual power was the weakest. He felt that it was better to sit with Yun Chujiu. Zhao Hu's eyes flashed, and he also rejected Luo Hai's invitation. Luo Hai and Yubo could not help but feel a little angry. In the end, they let Wu Dali and Qian Chao, whose spiritual power was slightly weaker, get into their carriage. Manor Master Sima had been watching from the side with a faint smile on his face, but the smile did not reach his eyes. After everyone got into the carriage, the convoy set off. Inside the carriage, Zhao Hui hesitated for a moment, but still took out a piece of paper and pen to write 2 words and handed it to Yun Chujiu. "Come and read on our website Wuxia World site." Thanks. Yun Chujiu saw the 2 words, "Is there a trap?" and thought to herself that this Zhao Hui was indeed much smarter than those people. Otherwise, he wouldn't have helped her subdue Tao Zhong in the first place. Yun Chujiu didn't say anything and nodded at him. Zhao Hui took out a pen and paper to write, "What should we do?" And Yun Chujiu picked up a pen to write a word, "Wait." Zhao Hui looked at the dog-like word, "Wait." His heart was like a beeping dog. This was equivalent to not saying anything, okay? He glared at Tao Zhong again without leaving a trace. It was all because of this good-for-nothing who could not accomplish anything. Yun Chujiu had already made things clear, but he insisted on saying that there was a smell of blood. He was afraid that this matter could not be resolved. Tao Zhong more or less understood the intention of Yun Chujiu and Zhao Hui. However, he felt that the 2 of them were making a fuss over nothing. Perhaps it was just a trivial matter. At this moment, he smelled a faint fragrance. However, before he could make any gesture, he already did not know anything. Yun Chujiu looked at the 3 people who fainted in the car and was speechless. When she came here, she realized that something was wrong. Logically speaking, there should be some small-sized demon beasts on both sides of the road, but she didn't see any. Even if the demon beasts were afraid that humans wouldn't appear, there should be claw marks or feces marks on the ground, but there weren't any. This was too abnormal. She took the opportunity to go to the latrine and caught a spirit bee. The news she received was that about a month ago, all the demonic beasts ran towards the mine ahead, but none of them came back. Yun Chujiu felt that there must be something fishy about this. Just as she was about to run back to report the news, she found that there were people from the Sunset Villa guarding the other end of the forest, so she had no choice but to break a few wild fruits. Chapter 38-29, Evil Formation reappeared. Yun Chujio originally had a sliver of hope in her heart. After arriving at the mine, she should be fine after giving a few perfunctory words and leaving immediately. Who would have thought that that idiot Tao Zhong would make such a big fuss out of it? He was simply courting death. Bai Li and the others were not allowed to fly within a few hundred li of the Sunset Glow Villa. Furthermore, there was no way to use the talisman, so there was no way to send a message back to the sect quickly. How could they be a match for Manor Master Sima and the others just by relying on them? Yun Chujio gave the antidote to the sleeping powder to the three of them. After the three of them woke up, Tao Zhong was just about to speak when he was scared back by Yun Chujio's fierce gaze. At this moment, a sound came from outside the carriage. Yun Chujio gave the three of them a look. The three of them understood and restrained their auras. They closed their eyes and pretended to be unconscious. The curtain of the carriage was lifted and then put down. A voice came from outside, "Manor Master, they have all fainted. Why don't we kill them now?" "No, turn around and bring them to the blood pool. The blood of cultivators will be more effective," Manor Master Sima said coldly. The carriage turned around and went back to the mine. In fact, it didn't go far, so a moment later, the carriage entered the mine again. During this time, Tao Zhong wanted to speak a few times. In order to prevent him from doing bad things, Yun Chujio directly cut him unconscious with a knife. Seeing this, Zhao Hui and Mu Jiang were extremely obedient. They closed their eyes and pretended to be dead. Yun Chujio did not dare to peek, but she heard a clang in her ears. It must have opened the so-called entrance to the blood pool. Following that, someone dragged Yun Chujio and the others out of the carriage like dead dogs. Hei Xinjiu endured it and did not say a word. She hated in her heart. Damn it, it's not too late for little Jiu to take revenge. You guys will suffer in a while. Come and read on our website Wuxia World site. Thanks. Yun Chujio soon smelled a strong smell of blood. She opened her eyes slightly. Although she could not see the whole picture, she saw many people and demonic beasts fixed on the wall. The blood in her body flowed to a certain place. Although Yun Chujio could only see a tiny bit of the scene, she had seen this situation once in the Longping Mountain of the Qingxian continent. She knew that this was the evil formation used by the godly demon palace to search for the Eye of Earth Profound. When she heard that all the demonic beasts had gone missing, she had already had such a guess in her heart. She did not expect that it was really so. Her heart was a little heavy. It seemed that the divine devil hall had already infiltrated all the continents. However, these people did not seem to know her. Otherwise, based on the hatred the divine devil hall had for her, they would have already killed her on the horse carriage. Perhaps they only knew her name but did not know her appearance. That was why they were like this. Just as Yun Chujio was slightly distracted, she was ruthlessly thrown onto the ground. Someone shouted, "I've sent you a few more fresh ones. Moreover, they are disciples of the Nameless Sword sect." Very good. Their spiritual power is of a high level, and the spiritual energy in their blood is even denser. Fix them to the wall. Just as Zhuang Ding bent down to pull Yun Chujio suddenly attacked and killed the man with a kitchen knife. At the same time, Mu Jiang and Zhao Hui also moved. Mu Jiang's spiritual power was slightly higher, so he dealt with the two Zhuang Ding in front of him alone, while Zhao Hui splashed Tao Zhong, Luo Hai, and the others awake with cold water. The Zhuang Ding did not expect that the unconscious man would suddenly attack them, so they let Yun Chujio and the others succeed. However, they quickly reacted and surrounded Yun Chujio and the others in the middle. Chapter 38-30 Competition. When Luo Hai and the others saw the scene in front of them, their legs couldn't help but go weak. This place seemed to be a huge stone room, and in the middle of it was a large array. In the middle of it was carved a huge spider lily, and around it were several array leaves, on top of it were drawn complicated ancient runes. Tens of thousands of demon beasts and humans were fixed to the ground and suspended in the air. They weren't dead, but the blood in their bodies was continuously pouring into the blood pool around the array board. This formation disc was not activated by spirit stones, but by the blood and life force of the demonic beasts. It was truly frightening. At this moment, they were surrounded by dozens of people. Those people were all wearing the clothes of the Zhuang Ding of the Sunset Manor. At this moment, they no longer had their previous humility, and their faces were filled with a ferocious killing intent. Just as Luo Hai and the others were still in shock. A small leader inside the Zhuang Ding sneered, "I didn't expect that you guys would not fall for it. This is good too. Let us experience the abilities of the so-called disciples of the big sects. Which one of you will compete with my men?" The small leader was sure that Yun Chujiu and the others would not be able to escape even if they had wings. Therefore, he was not worried that they would be able to escape, and he had the intention to play with them. Luo Hai's eyes flashed, and he snorted coldly, "With just you guys? Even our junior sister Yun, who has the weakest spiritual power, is much stronger than you guys. Junior sister Yun, you should teach them a lesson." Hearing Luo Hai's words, Yun Chujiu was angry and happy. A person who was stupid to a certain extent could not be saved. At this time, shouldn't they work together to escape? Even if they wanted to kill her, they should have done so after they escaped, right? Zhao Hui frowned. If he had known this would happen, he wouldn't have saved Luo Hai and Yu Bo. At this time, they were still fighting among themselves. It was simply too stupid. That small leader had an expression of wanting to watch a good show. "Yo, then let's invite Lord Yun to spar with my subordinates." However, the Nameless Sword sect actually still has trash at the 9th level of the spirit transformation realm. It's really surprising. Come and read on our website Wuxia World site. Thanks. Those Zhuangding also laughed along. They were like cats playing with mice. Mu Jiang frowned and blocked in front of Yun Chujiu. "Junior sister Yun, let me do it." Yun Chujiu smiled and shook her head at him. "No need, let me do it. Who asked me to be the most useless?" However, Yun Chujiu used Mu Jiang's cover to wink at Zhao Hui. Zhao Hui nodded his head subtly. Yun Chujiu was glad that there was a smart person in the team, or else it would be even worse. Yun Chujiu said with disdain, "Although I'm the weakest, I have no problem dealing with scum like you. Why? Give me some space, or else I won't be able to use it." The leader curled his lips. This stinky girl's spiritual power was not that great, but her tone was not small. He waved his hand, and the Zhuangding men stepped back to make way for him. A strong and stocky Zhuangding walked to the middle with his lips curled. "Little girl, I advise you to obediently surrender. Otherwise, you will suffer." Yun Chujiu pointed at the humans and demonic beasts that were fixed to the wall and said, "No matter how bitter it is, how can it be as bitter as theirs? You are really not human. You actually destroyed humanity for your own selfish reasons. Do you still have the face to live?" The burly man was immediately angered from embarrassment. "Damn girl. It was fine if you had obediently become a blood bull, but you just had to be so sharp-tongued. When I catch you, I will teach you a lesson." Chapter 38-31. Are you Yun Chujiu? Don't talk nonsense if you can fight. I'll let you experience the Nameless Sword sect's swordsmanship today. Yun Chujiu said as she casually pulled out a treasure sword from her storage ring and stabbed it at the brawny man. The brawny man naturally didn't think much of Yun Chujiu. She was just a little girl at the 9th level of the spirit transformation realm. How powerful could she be? He would be able to take her down in a few rounds. Therefore, the burly man was rather careless in dodging. Who would have thought that Yun Chujiu's sword move was fake? The moment the burly man dodged, the direction of the sword suddenly changed and stabbed towards the front of the burly man. Although the burly man relied on the spiritual energy barrier to dodge this sword move, he was in a rather sorry state. Under the crowd's jeering, he became angry from embarrassment and fought with Yun Chujio. During the fight between Yun Chujio and the burly man, it was inevitable that they would shift the battlefield. Under Yun Chujio's intentional guidance, some people who were originally guarding the door moved to the side. Yun Chujio gave Zhao Hui a look. Zhao Hui immediately understood and led Mu Jiang and Tao Zhong to the exit. Their goal was not to escape, but to guard the exit. Zhao Hui was quick-witted. He completely understood Yun Chujio's intention. By guarding the exit, the people inside would not be able to go out and deliver the message. There were dozens of people inside. They had a chance of winning if they risked their lives, but if they let the people outside in, they would be dead for sure. Zhuang Ding's little leader was stunned at first, then he sneered. He also understood Zhao Hu's intention, but he did not take it to heart. It was easy for them to kill these 8 people. Seeing that Zhao Hui and the other 2 had succeeded, Yun Chujio did not have the mood to waste time with the burly man anymore. Her sword suddenly sped up. Before the burly man could react, he was stabbed in the throat by a sword move that Yun Chujio created herself. She was dead. Taking advantage of the moment when everyone was stunned, Yun Chujio took out a few big sacks from her storage ring and threw them at the Zhuang Ding opposite her. Come and read on our website Wuxia World site. Thanks. In an instant, the air was filled with the comfortable smell of the chili dough. Yun Chujio raised her spiritual energy shield at the same time as she threw it, so she was not hindered at all. While releasing De Hua, she struck the Zhuang Ding with lightning. Zhao Hui and the other 2 were quite far away from Yun Chujio, so there was no hindrance. Luo Hai and the other 3 were miserable. Their faces were also covered by the chili dough, and their snot was choked until they cried. Luo Hai secretly hated in his heart. When they escaped, he would definitely think of a way to persuade the 3 of them to kill this Yun Chujio. However, he was quickly shocked by the De Hua that Yun Chujio released. Even though this stone room was very spacious, De Hua's huge body almost reached the ceiling of the stone room. The Zhuang Ding was also shocked by De Hua and Yun Chujio's lightning. The small leader's eyes suddenly shrank. You are Yun Chujio. Yun Chujio did not have the time to waste with him. She was conflicted as to whether to release the other dumb cuties and puppets. If she was alone, she would naturally choose to release them all. However, she was not familiar with Zhao Hui and the others, so it was very likely that there would be trouble in the future. She gritted her teeth and decided to take a look first. If it did not work, she could only release them. However, Yun Chujio's eyes soon lit up. There were many humans and demonic beasts fixed on the stone wall. Although the humans and demonic beasts didn't seem to have much vitality left, there were some high-level demonic beasts that looked alright. If they were rescued, then these people wouldn't be worth being afraid of. When Yun Chujio thought of this, she asked De Hua to block the servants who attacked her while she summoned her kitchen knife to cut the chains that trapped the demonic beasts. She chose the demonic beasts that had stronger vitality and said while cutting, "If you want to save your lives, help us kill the people who captured you. Otherwise, none of us will survive." Although those demonic beasts were weak, their desire to survive had gained the upper hand and they immediately joined the battle. With the help of these demonic beasts, Yun Chujio's side quickly gained the upper hand. Zhuang Ding's little leader's expression changed drastically. He wanted to lead his men to rush out of the door, but Zhao Hui and the other 2, along with De Hua, guarded the exit firmly. There was no way for them to rush out. At this moment, Zhao Hui was extremely impressed with Yun Chujio. Fortunately, junior sister Yun had predicted everything. Otherwise, if these people ran out, they would really have no way of surviving. After a quarter of an hour, except for that little leader, all of Zhuang Ding were dead. Yun Chujio did not have the time to interrogate the little leader and directly performed a soul search. Yun Chujio could not help but frown. Although the little leader's knowledge was limited, he still knew the military arrangements of the mine like the back of his hand. There were at least 1,000 people in this mine. If they were to rush out now, they would simply be courting death. Moreover, Manor Master Sima, who was outside, hadn't been able to wait for these people to leave. He reckoned that he would soon become suspicious and send people in to investigate. When that time came, they would be exposed. Yun Chuzhou told everyone about the information she had received. Luo Hai said unhappily, Yun Chuzhou, aren't you being too selfish? Why didn't you interrogate them publicly and insist on performing a soul search? Are you playing some tricks? Also, that person just called out your name. Are these people targeting you? Everyone, you've seen the current situation. It's as difficult as ascending to the heavens if we want to escape. Since those people are targeting Yun Chuzhou, why don't we use Yun Chuzhou as a condition in exchange? Then we can escape. Yu Bo also echoed from the side, that's right. This Yun Chuzhou is famous for causing trouble. Perhaps she offended someone in the southern continent. We can definitely escape by using her as a condition. Moreover, those people might not kill her. When the time comes, we will return to the sect and bring people to save her. What do you think? Yun Chujia's eyes deepened. She did not explain. Instead, she looked at the other 5 people and asked, what do you think? Wu Dali and Xian Chao looked at each other. Although the spiritual beast that Yun Chuzhou released seemed to be quite powerful, Yun Chujia's spiritual power was limited after all. It was safer for her to rely on Luo Hai and Yu Bo. Moreover, when that small leader found out about Yun Chujia's identity, he was very shocked. There must be something fishy going on. Thus, the 2 of them said dryly, Junior Sister Yun, we don't have any other way to escape now, so we'll have to trouble you. Pan DN0VE1, C.M. Tao Zhong's hand clenched and then loosened. In the end, he gritted his teeth and said, although I don't like Yun Chuzhou, she is after all a disciple of our nameless sword sect. I don't agree to use her in exchange. Once Tao Zhong said that, not to mention Luo Hai and the others, even He Xinjiu looked at Tao Zhong in astonishment. She could not help but feel a little dumbfounded. Although this Tao Zhong was a little arrogant and a little stupid. At least he still had some conscience. Luo Hai snorted coldly, Tao Zhong, if it weren't for your obstinacy this time, we wouldn't have fallen into danger. Since you don't agree, then you and Yun Chuzhou can be hostages together. The reason why Luo Hai said this was to give Mu Jiang and Zhao Hui a deterrent, wanting them to stand on their side. When Tao Zhong heard Luo Hai's words, he looked at Luo Hai and Yu Bo, who had a look of agreement on their faces. His face was ashen. Luo Hai was getting impatient from waiting. He raised his voice, Junior Brother Zhao, Junior Brother Mu, what do you say? Mu Jiang's face was slightly red, and his voice was stuttering due to his excitement, Senior Brother Luo, if it wasn't for Junior Sister Yun, we would have died long ago. You, how could you sacrifice Junior Sister Yun? I don't agree. Luo Hai's face immediately turned ugly. He looked at Zhao Hui again. As long as Zhao Hui stood on their side, they would still be able to secure victory. Junior Brother Zhao, as long as you agree with us, I can promise you that when we return to the sect, there will definitely be great benefits. Luo Hai promised. Unexpectedly. Zhao Hui straightforwardly said, Senior Brother Luo, I think Mu Jiang is right. If it wasn't for Junior Sister Yun, we would have died here long ago. Let's work together to think of a way to escape. Don't say anything about hostages or not hostages anymore. The expressions of Luo Hai, Yu Bo, and the other 3 immediately turned ugly. Luo Hai's expression changed a few times, and then he laughed dryly, all right, I was just testing everyone just now. Very good, everyone has remembered the sect's rules. Then let's discuss the next step. Yu Bo also echoed from the side, right, we can't kill each other at any time. We have to be united against the outside world. Junior Sister Yun, you won't take it seriously, right? Yun Chuzhou curled her lips, of course I won't take it seriously. Everyone, take some pills first to replenish your strength. Then we can discuss the countermeasures. I'll take a look at the situation of those demonic beasts. Luo Hai and Yu Bo looked at each other. She didn't dare to have any objections. Sooner or later, she would find an opportunity to get rid of her. Thus, Luo Hai and the others gathered together to discuss the countermeasures. Yun Chuzhou fed the demonic beasts some healing pills and put down some of the demonic beasts that were still alive. After a moment, a few huge demonic beasts suddenly attacked Luo Hai and the others. Mu Jiang was shocked and was about to go forward to help, but he was stopped by Zhao Hui. Then, he pointed his chin at Yun Chuzhou, who was not far away. Only then did Mu Jiang realize that the demonic beasts were only attacking Luo Hai and the others, not the three of them. Could it be that the demonic beasts were instigated by junior sister Yun? How was this possible? Also, what did junior sister Yun want to do? Yes, was she going to kill Luo Hai and the others? How could Luo Hai and the others be a match for so many demonic beasts? They shouted at Zhao Hui and the others, "Help! Help! Quickly save us!" Zhao Hui's face was indifferent. He was the shrewdest. At this time, the outcome was already decided. Only a fool would step forward to help. As for Mu Jiang, he couldn't bear it. However, he was dragged by Zhao Hui and caught a glimpse of Yun Chuzhi's cold gaze. He didn't know why his legs couldn't move. As for Tao Zhong, he hated Luo Hai and the others who wanted to sacrifice him to death. How could he help? While Luo Hai and the other three were in despair, they realized that these demonic beasts seemed to be under Yun Chuzhi's command. Luo Hai shouted at Yun Chuzhou, "Junior sister Yun, I was wrong. I was wrong. As long as you spare me, I will agree to any conditions." "Yes, junior sister Yun, we were just joking just now. Please make these demonic beasts stop." Yu Bo shouted at the top of his voice. Wu Dali and Qian Chao were regretful. They cried out, "Junior sister Yun, we were deceived by these two. We were wrong. Please spare us." Yun Chuzhou said indifferently, "I saved you, but you want to repay kindness with enmity. Do I still want to keep you for the new year? Remember not to meet me in your next life, or else I will kill you." Yun Chuzhou looked at Zhao Hui and the other two coldly. Zhao Hui immediately said obediently, "Junior sister Yun, Luo Hai, and the other two were killed by Zhuang Ding of Luo Yen Villa. It's really sad." Tao Zhong also echoed from the side, "That's right. Their deaths were well deserved." Although Mu Jiang was a simple and honest person, he was not really stupid. He quickly said, "Yes, yes. They died well, died well." Yun Chuzhou, however, when Mu Jiang said this, the atmosphere eased up a little. Yun Chuzhou first let the demonic beasts destroy the evil formation, then, she said to Zhao Hui and the others, "I have no choice. If they don't die and there's a change of heart in our team, it'll be even harder for us to escape. As you all have seen, although there are many people and demonic beasts trapped here, most of them have no chance of survival. The only ones who can help us to charge out are these 200+ demonic beasts. I reckon that Manor Master Sima will soon realize that something is amiss and bring his men to charge in. Do you have any good countermeasures?" Mu Jiang scratched his head. "Junior sister Yun, I'm stupid. I'll do whatever you say." Although Tao Zhong didn't say anything, it was clear that there was nothing he could do. Zhao Hui thought for a moment and said, "Junior sister Yun, although there are more than 1,000 people in this mine, because they don't know what's happening here, they might not surround the exit at the same time. Why don't we catch them off guard and wait for the exit to open before we charge out? After we rush out, in order to avoid the Falling Goose Mountain Villa from setting up an ambush, we will run in the opposite direction. As long as we reach a place where we can use the talisman, we will be able to inform the sect." Yun Chuzhou felt that what Zhao Hui said made sense, so she nodded her head in agreement. At this moment, the demonic beasts had already destroyed the evil formation. Yun Chujo let the tough earth-type demonic beasts stand at the front, and then let the fire-type and wind-type demonic beasts stand around. As for the four of them, they stood shamelessly in the middle. Although the demon beasts felt very aggrieved, there was nothing they could do. After all, their lives were saved by these few humans, and they had to rely on them to escape. After a while, the exit was indeed opened from the outside. At the moment when the light from the outside shone in, several earth-type demon beasts rushed in. Soon after, Yun Chujo and the rest of the demon beasts also rushed out. Although Manor Master Sima and the rest felt that something was wrong, they definitely did not expect to encounter such a situation. By the time they reacted, Yun Chujo and the rest of the demonic beasts had already rushed out of the mine. Manor Master Sima was exasperated as he led his men to chase after them. However, he was not particularly worried because he had a way to make those demonic beasts return obediently. As long as he could control those demonic beasts, the remaining four people were nothing to be afraid of. Just as Yun Chujo and the rest were running wildly, those demonic beasts suddenly became restless. Some of them with low spiritual power even started to turn around and run back. Yun Chuji's heart tightened. She recalled what the spirit ant had said earlier. These demonic beasts had taken the initiative to run to the mine, which meant that Manor Master Sima definitely had some means to attract these demonic beasts. If these demonic beasts all ran back, then it would be very difficult for the four of them to resist the pursuers of the Sunset Manor. What should they do? Yun Chujo gritted her teeth. It seemed that they could only fight fire with fire. She said to Zhao Hui and the other two, "Let's go to the front." Zhao Hui and the other two did not understand what was going on, but they still followed Yun Chujo to the front. Then, they tragically discovered that the demonic beasts behind them seemed to have gone crazy, as if they were going to flatten them. What was wrong with these demonic beasts? Just a moment ago, they were going to turn around and run back. Why did they now look like they were going to fight to the death with them? Manor Master Sima had initially been feeling proud when he saw that a few demonic beasts had already turned around. However, he had not expected that those demonic beasts would suddenly go crazy and not return. What was going on? Manor Master Sima gritted his teeth and crushed a few more medicinal pills. An even more intense fragrance spread out. However, those demonic beasts acted as if they had not heard him and continued to run forward wildly. They had attracted some spirit ants, spirit bees, and other demonic insects to gather towards him. He had even been accidentally stung by a spirit bee. Manor Master Sima was so angry that he gritted his teeth. After using the cleaning spell, he led his men and chased after them. He thought to himself, "Fortunately, I have arranged a lot of men in front of me. I don't think those people can run away." Yun Chujo tried to stop Guai Chao from releasing its scent. When she realized that the demonic beasts had gradually returned to normal, she could not help but heave a sigh of relief. She did not know what method the Divine Devil Hall had used to attract those demonic beasts. Fortunately, those methods were not enough in front of Go Weiba. Just as Yun Chujo was feeling slightly relieved, hundreds of Zhuang Ding in the Fallen Goose Mountain Villa's uniform appeared in front of her. Moreover, there was only one exit leading to the outside world. Yun Chujo did not need to think. The demonic beasts knew that they would only die if they fell into the hands of those people. Hence, they howled and pounced on Zhuang Ding. Yun Chujo and the other three also joined in the battle. Yun Chujo had already communicated with Mao Mao Chiu just now. If it really did not work out, she could hide in the Great Void Mystic Realm, but what about Mu Jiang and the other two? And what about these demonic beasts? Although Yun Chujo was not a good person, she still disdained to abandon her companions. Yun Chujo suddenly remembered the sword technique she saw on the cliff. Why not give it a try? Yun Chujo felt that the big kitchen knife was a little too short for her. She took out a sword from her storage ring and began to display the swordsmanship she had learned on the cliff. At first, she was still a little rusty, but she soon found the feeling. Zhuang Ding, who was around her, kept screaming. Zhao Hui and the others were dumbfounded. What kind of swordsmanship was this? It seemed to be similar to the nameless swordsmanship used by the sect leader and the elders, but it seemed to be even more profound than that. How did junior sister Yun learn it? Could it be that she also learned it by eating poisonous mushrooms? Chapter 38-36, Sword Light of Slaughter. This was the first time Yun Chujio had used this half-set of sword technique against an enemy. She did not expect it to be so powerful, and she could not help but feel happy. Unfortunately, the joy quickly turned into sorrow. In the direction of the valley entrance, hundreds of people wearing black masks appeared. The leader was wearing a silver mask. Yun Chujio was very familiar with this outfit. It was the people from the Divine Devil Hall. The moment the silver-masked man saw Yun Chujio, he cried out in surprise, "Yun Chujio? Kill them all. Leave no one alive." Manor Master Sima was originally a little worried, but when he saw those people, he immediately heaved a sigh of relief. The spiritual power of these people wearing black masks was much higher than that of the manor staff of the Fallen Goose Villa. Very quickly, more than half of the demonic beasts were killed and injured, and Zhao Hui and the others were also heavily injured. Yun Chujio knew that even if she released the puppets and the silly cuties, it would be of no use. Just as she was thinking, Zhao Hui and the other two were captured by the people of the Divine Devil Hall. The silver-masked man said coldly, "Yun Chujio, I know that you have some decent spiritual pets, but so what? Even if you let them out, they will still die. You are not our match at all, just surrender." With this, those little things might still have a chance of surviving. Moreover, if you don't stop, these three people will only be buried with you. TSK, and these demonic beasts will all die because of you. Zhao Hui and the other two did not say anything to beg for mercy. They knew that it would be useless even if they did. They also did not say anything to Yun Chujio. Even if Yun Chujio did not care about their lives, they had nothing to say. Their lives were at stake. Who could care about who? When the silver-masked man saw that Yun Chujio did not say anything, he killed an injured man Tian's huge strength bear with a single slap. The huge body of the man Tian's huge strength bear fell to the ground. However, its eyes were not closed. There was a strong sense of unwillingness in its eyes. Yun Chujio remembered that when she fed the man Tian's huge strength bear with the medicinal pills, the man Tian's huge strength bear had even cupped its hands to her in a mischievous manner. Now, it had died in front of her. Come and read on our website Wuxia World site. Thanks. At this moment, another miserable scream rang out. The silver-masked man had killed another man Tian Wind Blade Tiger. The first thing that man Tian Wind Blade Tiger did when it was saved by Yun Chujio was not to heal its injuries. Instead, it was to comb its beautiful fur in a pretentious manner. However, at this moment, its beautiful fur was already stained with fresh blood. There was even a bloody hole that was continuously bleeding. Yun Chujio, I know that you might not care about these beasts. What about these three people? If you don't throw away the sword in your hand, I will chop off their limbs in front of you, and then, Yun Chujio could no longer hear the silver-masked man's words. Her heart was filled with murderous intent. It was a murderous intent that blotted out the sky and covered the earth. Yun Chujio did not use her will to control the surging murderous intent. She wanted to use this murderous intent to kill all these animals that were inferior to pigs and dogs. The black bead seemed to know Yun Chujio's intention, so it did not react. Just as the silver-masked man was talking smugly, a bright light flashed in front of his eyes. Then, his eyes widened and he fell to the ground. Even until his death, he still did not know what was going on. Yun Chujio was clearly still some distance away from him. There were clearly many disciples of the Divine Devil Hall around him. How could he have been stabbed in the throat? The scene that followed was a scene that Zhao Hui and the others would never forget for the rest of their lives. It was bloody and terrifying, but they saw hope for survival. They could no longer see Yun Chujio's figure clearly. They could only see a ball of sword light slaughtering non-stop. Wherever the sword light passed, no one survived. Blood flowed like a river, and corpses littered the ground. Chapter 38-37, She was the devil. Yunchujo had maintained a trace of clarity at the beginning, but as she continued to kill, there was only one thought in her mind, and that was to kill. Manor Master Sima had originally thought that the silver-masked man would bring his men over to support them, and that they would definitely win. Who would have thought that Yunchujo, who was only at the 9th level of the spirit transformation realm, would actually go crazy? All the attacks aimed at her spirit energy were blocked by the sword intent surrounding her body. However, the treasured sword in her hand was like the god of death, continuously reaping human lives. Manor Master Sima's legs were a little weak. Seeing the people wearing the black mask falling one after another, he was afraid. If he didn't escape, he wouldn't be able to live. He turned around and ran, afraid that if he was a step slower, he would be killed by Yunchujo. However, he had only run a few steps when a treasured sword came from behind and nailed him to the ground. He turned his head with much effort and saw that the young girl who seemed to be possessed by a demon was staring at him coldly, and there were corpses all over the ground around her. Manor Master Sima felt that his life force was being drained bit by bit from his body. He was unwilling to accept this. Everything had clearly been arranged seamlessly, and Lord Silver Mask had clearly brought people to support him. Why had he failed in the end? It was her, it was all her. It was all this devil-like young lady. She was not human. She was a devil. Manor Master Sima watched as the devil-like young lady walked towards him step by step. Endless fear surged up in him, and he suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. He was actually scared to death. Yunchujo walked up to him and pulled out the treasured sword that was inserted into his body. Her eyes, which were filled with purple lightning, did not have a trace of emotion. There was only a frenzied killing intent. At this moment, the black bead in her dantian trembled. Yunchujo felt a sharp pain in her dantian. The lightning in her eyes gradually faded away and she fainted on the ground. Come and read on our website Wuxia World site. Thanks. Behind her, Zhao Hui and the others cried out in surprise and quickly ran over. They fed her pills and called out to her. The surviving demonic beasts also began to roar in low voices. After experiencing life and death, it had nothing to do with whether they were demonic beasts or humans. At this moment, they were all comrades who fought side by side. Yunchujo quickly woke up. When she saw the corpses all over the ground, she didn't have the time to sort out her thoughts. She said in a somewhat hoarse voice, "Let's leave this place quickly." The Divine Devil Hall has a secret technique that can transmit information. Perhaps the Divine Devil Hall will send someone over soon. Zhao Hui and the other two quickly helped Yunchujo to sit on the back of a Manskai sawtooth elephant. They then sped away with the remaining dozens of demonic beasts. Yunchujo sat on the back of the elephant with her brows furrowed. She did not know if it was because she had used up all her energy during the slaughter, but she felt that there was nothing in her dantian. There was not even a trace of spiritual power. In the past, even if she had awakened her power when she was stimulated, everything would still be normal after she woke up. However, why was it like this time? Could it be that the awakening caused by the killing intent had sequelae? Just as she was extremely worried, she vaguely felt that spiritual energy was slowly being generated in her dantian. Only then did her heart heave a sigh of relief. Fortunately, she had been scared to death. At this moment, Zhao Hui said, "Junior Sister Yun, after passing through the valley entrance, we can use the talisman normally. Then, we can ask the sect for help." Zhao Hui paused at this point and asked tentatively, "Junior Sister Yun, how should we report this to the sect?" Yunchujo could not help but look at Zhao Hui with a faint smile. This Zhao Hui was quite tactful. She curled the corners of her lips and said, "How do you mean? Wasn't it just my fiancé who appeared at the critical moment to save us?" Chapter 38-38 was either happy or worried. Fiancé. Junior Sister Yun, where is your fiancé? Mu Jiang asked in a daze. Zhao Hui glared at him and then said to Yunchujo, junior sister Yun, you are right. It was your fiancé who saved us. Those people from the Divine Devil Hall and Manor Master Sima were all killed by your fiancé. Yun Chuzhou was quite satisfied with Zhao Hu's intelligence and tactfulness. Her clear and cold gaze fell on the pale-faced Tao Zhong. Senior brother Tao, what do you think? Tao Zhong could not describe the feeling in his heart. He recalled the contempt and insults he had towards Yun Chuzhou previously. It was like a joke. He was like a clown who was complacent previously. Yun Chuzhou simply could not be bothered with him. Otherwise, she would have killed him long ago. He said hesitantly, junior sister Yun, you're right. Yes, it was your fiancé who saved us. The corners of Yun Chujia's mouth curled slightly, and she didn't say anything else. When they were out of danger, it was necessary to let the nightmare beast weave a dream for them. However, the nightmare beast had just finished weaving a dream for Li Zhuangji a few days ago. If she wanted to succeed this time, she had to help Meng Yanshou. Just as Yun Chuzhou was thinking, she heard Zhao Hu's gasp. Her heart sank. She looked up and saw hundreds of people wearing black masks coming out from the bushes on both sides of the valley entrance. The silver-masked man in the lead was looking at them viciously. Yun Chujia's head buzzed. What she was afraid of came true. Although she had recovered some spiritual power, it was pitifully little. Even if her killing intent appeared again, its power would probably be limited. Zhao Hui and the others had hoped that Yun Chuzhou would kill again, but when they saw her pale face, despair surged in their hearts. It was over. They really had no way to escape this time. Come and read on our website Wuxia World site. Thanks, the silver-masked man said coldly like a poisonous snake. Are you Yun Chuzhou, who has ruined our plans time and time again? This time, let's see how you can escape. Go. Kill them. Right at this moment, the people from the Divine Devil Hall suddenly shouted for them to kill. Zhao Hui immediately said excitedly, it's the people from the 9-storied pavilion. It's Tower Master Luochen. Junior sister Yun, we're saved. Yun Chujia's heart was like a beeping dog. She did not know whether she should be happy or worried. The reason why Tower Master Luochen had appeared so timely was probably because he had already made arrangements and wanted to kidnap her on the way. She did not expect that he would actually take the risk of becoming enemies with the nameless sword sect to kidnap her. He was really crazy. Just as Yun Chuzhou was thinking about it, Tower Master Luochen had already rushed past the encirclement and stood in front of her, acting like a guardian. Yun Chuzhou cursed silently in her heart. If this had not happened in the past, she would have been slightly touched. However, now, she was filled with sarcasm. Although the number of people in the 9-tiered pavilion was not as many as the people of the Divine Devil Hall, their spiritual power was clearly much higher. In addition to Tower Master Luochen, who had high spiritual power, the people of the Divine Devil Hall were quickly defeated and left. Zhao Hui and the other two hurriedly jumped down from the back of the elephant to thank Tower Master Luochen. Tower Master Luochen's eyes flickered, obviously considering whether to kill them to silence them. He did not spend so much effort to save the 3 idiots. As long as he killed them, he could take Yun Chuzhou away and push their deaths onto the Divine Devil Hall. Yun Chuzhou easily guessed Tower Master Luochen's thoughts. She gritted her teeth. It seemed that she could only hide in the Great Void Mystic Realm. As long as she disappeared, Lan Luochen did not have to kill Zhao Hui and the other two. It was just that she would have some trouble in the future. Chapter 38-39, Shui Wuji and Enfeng. Just as Yun Chuzhou was about to hide in the Great Void Mystic Realm, a bewitching laugh came from the bushes nearby. Yo, Lan Luochen, are you planning to snatch the bride while your face is paralyzed? Yun Chuzhou heard this voice and could not help but feel delighted. She looked up and saw Shui Wuji in red walking over with a casual smile. Yun Chuzhou looked behind Shui Wuji with some hope, but she didn't see the figure she wanted to see. She couldn't help but feel a little disappointed. Besides disappointment, she was also a little worried. Although Wu Jie's brain was quite powerful, he might not be a match for Tower Master Luochen. Moreover, he had the subordinates of the nine-tiered pavilion behind him. Tower Master Luochen saw Shui Wuji and showed some contempt on his face. Shui Wuji, do you think you are still the young Master Wuji from before? What right do you have to criticize me now? Shui Wuji shrugged. TSK, Lan Luochen, you are still as annoying as before. However, you are quite pitiful. Is your confidence built on this so-called power? No wonder little sister Jiu doesn't like you anymore. I'm afraid no one will like a person like you. Tower Master Luchen's expression suddenly became very cold. So-called power? Shui Wuji, you will soon know whether this so-called power is useful or not. Go, kill him. Yun Chuzhou clenched her teeth in anxiety. If Shui Wuji did not show up, she could hide, but if she hid now, Shui Wuji would lose his life. What should she do? Could it be that she could only pretend to follow Lan Luochen to the 9 pavilions? Yun Chuzhou was about to speak when she heard Shui Wuji chuckle. It seems that only you have subordinates, and I don't. Little baby, come out. Following Shui Wuji's words, Enfeng walked out with a face full of despair. If not, he wouldn't have followed this stupid young Master Wuji to mess around. Come and read on our website Wuxia World site. Thanks. Tower Master Luochen looked at Enfeng with a disdainful expression. There were only 2 of them, and he still wanted to fight with them. However, his expression quickly turned ugly. He realized that he couldn't see through the spiritual power levels of Shui Wuji and Enfeng. This meant that their spiritual power was higher than his. How was this possible? Di Baiming's spiritual power was higher than his, which was enough to make him angry. How could their spiritual power be higher than his? Shui Wuji crossed his arms and said provocatively, Lan Luochen, what do you think? How about we compete? Although there are only 2 of us, it's not certain who will win. Lan Luochen looked at the dozens of beasts behind Yun Chuzhou, then glanced at Zhao Hui and the other 2. He weighed the pros and cons in his heart, and finally said coldly, I have other things to do today, so I won't argue with you for now. Retreat. Tower Master Luochen looked at Yun Chuzhou deeply, then left with the people of the 9-storied pavilion. Yun Chuzhou finally let out a sigh of relief, but she also knew that this was not a good place to talk, so she immediately called the others and hurried out of the valley. After leaving the valley, the demonic beasts roared a few times and then ran towards the mountain forest. Everyone boarded their flying spirit tools and hurriedly headed in the direction of the Nameless Sword sect. Yun Chuzhou and the other 3 immediately took out sound transmission talismans to send a message to the sect and requested for the sect to come to their aid. Yun Chuzhou was afraid that someone in the middle would cause trouble, so she specially sent a sound transmission talisman to Hall Master Zhuge, making sure that he had to see Master Ouyang personally report this matter. Chapter 3840, Elder Jiyu had arrived after Yun Chuzhou sent out the voice transmission talisman. She went to another cabin with Enfeng and Shui Wuji. Brother Wuji, little madman, why are you here? Where is my fiancé who is so angry at the heavens and the earth? Shui Wuji's mouth twitched. Little sister Jiu, let's not talk about that facial paralysis first. Why do you look so pale? You should take a rest first. We want leave for the time being. You don't have to worry about the Divine Devil Hall's pursuers coming over. Yun Chuzhou also felt a little dizzy, so she did not ask any more questions and laid down to rest first. This fellow was muttering in her heart. It seemed that this killing intent was not very similar to Qi deviation. After all, when she went crazy, she only killed the people of the Divine Devil Hall and did not harm Zhao Hui and the others. However, this killing intent clearly had a side effect. Not only did it consume a lot of spiritual power, but it was also very tiring. However, in the past, the awakening of the power caused by grief and indignation took a longer time, so it seemed that the killing intent was not bad. In a daze, Yun Chuzhou finally fell asleep. Perhaps because she was too tired, Yun Chuzhou slept until the next morning. When she woke up, she found that there was nothing wrong with her body, so she was relieved. Junior sister Yun, I just received news that Elder Gu has already brought people to meet us. I believe that he will meet us soon, Zhao Hui said with some excitement. Yun Chujiu was also very happy, but she just remembered that she hadn't woven a dream for Zhao Hui and the other two. Now, there was no need to talk about her fiancé, just Shui Wuji and Enfeng. The higher the spiritual power of the weaved person, the clearer their will, and the more difficult it was to weave a dream. Therefore, Yun Chujiu secretly drugged Zhao Hui and the other two, and then asked the nightmare beast to weave a dream for them. Come and read on our website Wuxia World site. Thanks. Meng Yanshou was a habitual offender. Therefore, even after Zhao Hui and the other two woke up, they did not notice anything unusual. However, because Meng Yanshou had used up too much spiritual power, the whole rabbit was listless. Yun Chujiu felt a little heartache. She comforted Meng Yanshou and threw it a few story books before putting it into the spirit beast bag. Yun Chujiu found an opportunity to ask Dark Wind about Di Baiming. Enfeng said that Di Baiming had something on and could not get away. Moreover, he could not use the sound transmission talisman where he was. Yun Chujiu saw that Enfeng and Shui Wuji's expressions were normal, so she didn't doubt them. Half a day later, Yun Chujiu and the others finally met Elder Gu and the others. The two flying spirit tools landed on the ground. Yun Chujiu simply introduced Shui Wuji and Enfeng, stating that they were her fiancé's subordinates. Elder Gu was shocked. These two young men's spiritual power was even higher than his. It seemed that it was true that Yun Chujiu's fiancé had once defeated Tower Master Luochen. However, since Yun Chujiu's fiancé was so powerful, why had he never heard of him before? And he didn't have any power. Although Elder Gu was full of doubts, he still politely greeted Shui Wuji and Enfeng and asked them about what had happened to Yun Chujiu. Yun Chujiu told them about what had happened, but she blamed the deaths of Luo Hai and the others on those people from the Fallen Goose Villa, and blamed Shui Wuji and Enfeng for killing the people from the God and Demon Palace. Because she was afraid of making a mistake, she did not hide the matter of Tower Master Luochen. Elder Gu was terrified when he heard this. His expression changed slightly as he said, I originally planned to bring you back to the Fallen Goose Mountain Villa to capture those remaining members. Now, it seems that it's safer to ask the sect to send more people over. Yun Chujiu naturally agreed with Bai Li. The area within hundreds of miles of the Fallen Goose Mountain Villa was prohibited from flying, and talismans were forbidden. If one entered rashly, one might fall into the trap of the godly demon palace. Chapter 38-41, The Little Silver Snake. She blinked her eyes and said, Elder Gu, this matter is of great importance. Why don't we ask the other major forces to send people over to take a look? Elder Gu's eyes lit up and he immediately took out his voice transmission talisman to communicate with Master Ouyang. Seeing Elder Gu walk to the other side, Shui Wuji said to Yun Chujiu, Little Sister Jiu, come over here. The little madman has something to talk to you about. Enfeng looked at Shui Wuji with a sad look, then resigned himself to his fate and followed the two to the other side. Seeing the two of them acting so mysteriously, Yun Chujiu could not help but feel a little curious. She opened the isolation array and asked, Little madman, what's the matter? Enfeng laughed dryly, then took out a small silver snake from his sleeve pocket. Miss Jiu, this is your Majesty's spiritual pet. It's been a little inconvenient for my Majesty recently, so he wants you to take care of it for a while. Yun Chujiu looked at the small silver snake in Enfeng's hand with a dumbfounded expression. That's not right. Isn't the small yellow dragon golden? And its appearance is that of a dragon. Isn't this a snake? Enfeng immediately explained, Miss Jiu, the small yellow dragon's original appearance was too ostentatious, so it transformed into this appearance to avoid attracting trouble. Hearing his words, Yun Chujiu felt that it made sense. The small yellow dragon was indeed a little ostentatious, and it was indeed very common for it to turn into a small silver snake. However, she disliked the little yellow dragon very much, so she said with disdain, You can help raise it. Why did you have to send it all the way here for me? Come and read on our website Wuxia World site. Thanks. And Feng choked. Shui Wuji said from the side, little sister Jiu, it's not like you don't know that this little yellow dragon is special. It can't be kept into our spirit beast bags. We kill it every day. How can we have time to take care of it? Besides, we've never raised a spiritual pet before, so we don't know how to do it. Shui Wuji squeezed his eyes as he said, little sister Jiu, besides, if this little lecherous dragon is with you, won't you be able to meet him when he comes to pick it up? Yun Chujia's heart skipped a beat. Yes, the pretty boy had sealed his 7 emotions and 6 desires, so he might deliberately avoid her. With the little lecherous dragon, she wasn't afraid that he wouldn't come to find her. Besides, she had many spiritual pets anyway, so she did not need this little lecherous dragon. It was a good opportunity to take care of it. Therefore, she curled her lips. All right, then I will reluctantly accept it. And Feng heard this and hurriedly stuffed the little silver snake into Yun Chujia's hand. Then, he said in a hurry, well, Miss Jiu, young Master Wuji and I still have important things to do. We will take our leave now. Shui Wuji also said, little sister Jiu, take care. I'll come to see you in a few days. After the two of them finished talking, they left in a hurry, looking like they were running away. Yun Chujiu was completely confused. What was wrong with these two? Yun Chujiu lowered her head and looked at the small silver snake in her hand. It looked a little more pleasing than the golden one before, but she still despised it. No matter how it changed its appearance, it would still be that lecherous dragon. Shameless. Yun Chujiu wanted to put the small silver snake into her spiritual beast bag, but she did not succeed. Only then did she realize that this thing was a divine beast. If it did not recognize its owner, she would not be able to put it in. It was really troublesome. No wonder the black chicken's head and the little madman were thrown to her like a hot potato. Thinking of this, Yun Chujiu disliked the small silver snake even more. She grabbed the small silver snake's tail and threw it to the ground. You pervert. I might as well let you die on your own. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.